What is up, folks? Happy Friday. It is February the 4th, leading up to Pro Bowl weekend. I'm Jay. That's Craig. This is Sports Clichés, episode 15. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Craig, how's it going, man?
Not bad, not bad. I was talking to Jay before we started this stream. I was like, man, a little bit worried we might not have a lot to talk about this week. You know, there's only the two games last week, no game this week. Boy, the NFL decided, nah, you'll be fine.
Yeah, we're gonna have a few things to hit on, but this is let's lead off with what the weekend's festivities are looking like, and what we've actually already seen. I don't know. Did you catch any of the Pro Bowl stuff last night, as far as the skills comps?
A little bit of it. I didn't get to see the whole thing. I did see that Trayvon Diggs disgusting springboard catch.
Yes.
Holy shit.
The catch. Okay, so I caught a good amount of it. I just kind of had it on the side. I was able to catch some other highlights for some stuff that I wasn't able to quite catch. I was pleasantly surprised this year. I was very pleasantly surprised. I was actually kind of going into this week and what I was kind of expecting. I was probably going to rant that they need to bring some more of this stuff to the Pro Bowl. Dodgeball, fucking excellent. That was fire. But it was just, this one was pretty good. They could have done a little bit more, I think, with maybe the presentation of it. It seemed like it was kind of limited as far as the whole view of it, and it's not exactly easy to call dodgeball and stuff, so it was a little sporadic on that. But it was a lot of fun. Excellent one-handed catch to end it, I believe, by, was it Justin Jefferson, I think?
Justin Jefferson.
Beautiful catch there. Mac Jones going out first was great. Just funny stuff. It's just entertaining. Micah Parsons out sprinting the fuck out of Nick Chubb, and Tyreek was out there, but Tyreek was injured. I don't know why the fuck Tyreek's actually even out there, because he's injured, so he's probably not gonna be able to give it his all. So he's gonna lose, and then it's gonna be a big deal of comparison. But dude, Micah Parsons, holy
Micah
shit.
Parsons can run. Somebody needs to sign
That's
that.
Scary as
Any
fuck.
team that needs a running back needs to go and sign him up right the fuck now.
Play both sides of the ball. Don't worry about it.
The fucking Bills are out there going, hold on, 245 pounds? Maybe we get Micah Parsons in and convert him.
And then, I guess Russell Wilson went absolutely off in the throwing competition, which is cool. Those are pretty fun to see. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what the rest of the weekend has planned. I think that was the night for it, and then the actual game itself, I'm not too sure. I'll have to take an actual look of kind of what's coming up, if any more events really.
I think that was it until the actual game.
Yeah. I didn't know if they were doing anything else. It seemed like they pretty much knocked out all the things that I was seeing leading up to it. So, but I don't know, kind of interesting. It ends up being a kind of cold night down there, which was a little surprising given the location. I think that's been something kind of, there's things to still, I think, improve upon as far as the Pro Bowl is concerned, because it has fallen off quite a bit. A lot of guys just opt out. You got to make it kind of worth it. I think one of the ways they made it worth that before is having that damn thing in Hawaii. That was fun. You obviously get that aesthetic to it. It's a vacation for these guys too. So you get kind of guys who are actually wanting to go because it's, going out, with, peers, whether they're teammates or just, players in other teams, that sort of thing. You kind of go out with the, your fellow professionals, that sort of thing, best in the game, and able to do that. One thing that they did bring this year, though, definitely for the dodgeball game, I think Justin Jefferson brought it up afterward, talked about, they got this championship or whatever, they got this win, and they got this bread. Cash incentives, hey, nothing speaks more, better than money for these guys. And if you incentivize them as far as, with some nice bonuses in there to compete in these things and win them, you're gonna get a good price. Hey, shit, you put $1 million up, yeah, I'm gonna try my ass off in the throwing competition, and whatever it is. That sort of thing. I hope they kind of continue going forward. What do you think? Anything you have in mind as far as what could they really add to this weekend? Because it's kind of the dead weekend, right? Most of the times it's thought, and we'll see what kind of game we get between the NFC and the AFC. But I think this was a step in the right direction with the skills night.
100% agree. I thought the skills competition, from what I saw anyways, was one of the best ones I've seen in years. And they needed to borrow more from the NHL and NBA skills competitions, right? Which, the NBA, you got the dunk contest, 3-point shootout, right? They're all fun. The NHL, you have like the shootout competition, the fastest skater thing. It's a lot of fun, right? I think the biggest thing that they can do to improve this is get that skills competition on a major network. Get it on NBC. Get it on Fox. Get it somewhere where a lot more people can see it. Because I think it was, at least up here for us, I don't know about down there, but we could only get it on NFL Network. Up here.
Yeah.
Right.
I think a lot of the stuff, you're able, ESPN, and you're able to get through streaming services and stuff like that afterwards, so it's pretty readily available.
But get that shit on like the major networks. Get it on every home, because it was fun. Like there was a lot of fun things out there. I mentioned that the highlights have been on all day on sports news about that Diggs, Trayvon Diggs flip catch. That was insane. Right, and you mentioned it. Micah Parsons out-sprinting running backs and wide receivers, and he's a 245-pound linebacker.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it was a lot of fun. They just got to get more eyes on it. Because if you get more eyes on the skills competition, that's going to convert to the game.
Yeah, and
it's an all-star game. It's never going to be, right? Like, you watch the NHL All-Star game or the NBA All-Star game. They're all the same. Nobody's playing 100%. Hell, half the guys probably aren't even out there playing 50%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But the skills competition, I think, is where you can really get the eyes on it and maybe get some fun stuff going, right? Yeah. Like, I think that I'm with you. Yesterday was a great start. I think they added a couple of really fun competitions. I think get it on a major market, get more fan involvement. Yeah. Right? For that catching contest that they did, freaking have it a fan vote for who wins.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, right? I like that. Something like that.
Go on Twitter, right? Hashtag T-Diggs if you're voting for Trayvon Diggs. Hashtag S-Diggs if you're voting for Stephon Diggs, right? And just really let the fans choose their winners, right? That's going to get more fan involvement, and it's going to get more people watching.
I think that would be pretty well advised, especially for something, that is... Yeah, those kind of judging competitions, the fans could even just be like one of, you have 3 actual judges, and then they have the fan vote that's added in. Yeah, absolutely. I think other sports have added that sort of thing in. We've seen that before, so I think that's a pretty good call. But you're speaking of fan participation, so this kind of leads into one thing I was thinking about. I was thinking, all right, just brainstorming. We need some other events potentially to add to this thing. I think you could only just add a couple more. What do you not have right now? I think there's, for the fan involvement and just something a little bit more fun. And then I kind of remembered, I don't know if you ever watched this, on old Spike TV, show called Pros vs. Joes.
Oh, hell yeah. I love
Bring back Pros vs. Joes in an NFL setting. It could be flag football. You can't have, randoms getting tackled out there. Some kind of, or do a pass competition against Russ, and if you could get at least half the points or something like that, you'll win. There's a charitable idea, there's probably charities and that sort of thing. You get involved with it, as far as donations for that. So I'm thinking that. The other one is you don't see anything on the defensive side of the ball, right? None of the defenders are really able to come out and be stud. We need a big hit event somehow. And it's like, well, you can't really have them tackling players, but I don't know. You could dummies, those, that sort of
punching
thing.
Machines.
Yeah,
those punching machines that you can hit. Rig up something like that where a guy goes in and hits it, and whoever hits it with the most force, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think you gotta get something in there.
I'm with you. I like that one
for the big hit, or like a, like a get to the runner. I don't know, something that shows the
Yeah.
defensive side of the ball as well. I think that would be pretty fun. But yeah, pros versus Joes. I think that's.
I love your pros versus Joes idea. You targeted the wrong position group. What position group do fans hate on more than any other one?
Kickers.
You have the kickoff.
Yes.
Evan McPherson versus Joey Twitter, who's like, I could be an NFL
Yeah, you
kicker.
think a 25-yarder, we're giving you one of the shortest distances you have. You think you can fucking do it? Here we go.
And
We've seen this.
You line them up. You start from like 15-yard line, then you go back to the 20, and you see how long they can keep up with the NFL kicker.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's another event. Like, get the kickers out there. You get some really talented kickers out there hitting some angle shots and stuff like that, trick shots. That would be a lot of fun too.
So one competition I was thinking of, the NHL has done like this combined skills competition thing recently, where you start off with one player, and their goal is you got to hit 3 sauce passes, right? You got 3 little nets, you sauce over a little board thing, right? You sauce into the first one, then the second one, then the third one. Then the next player grabs a puck, and they gotta do some stick handling through the cones, and then you get a last player who goes in a one-on-one shot versus a goaltender. You could do something similar to that in football, right? Like a punt kick pass thing, right? Where you got the punters and kickers there anyways. Let's use them, right? So you start off, you gotta get each punter from like the 50, hit a coffin corner inside of the 10, right? From there you move on to like a 40-yard field goal contest, right? Whichever kicker hits that first, and then you move on to like a passing contest with one of the quarterbacks, right? I think things like that are a lot of fun where you can directly race to, right? I think that's the other thing that people love seeing that shit, right? That brings excitement.
Right.
I think something like that could be an idea. Obviously, it's just me vamping off the top of my head. It's not the most fleshed out idea in the world. But things like that. But I love the pros versus Joes idea, but it's got to be kickers. Because nobody gets hated on more than the kickers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we saw the what was the contest in Chicago? Was it? That was like a couple of years ago. They got folks kicking in the streets, and nobody can kick for shit. And granted, not the easiest conditions to kick in there, but it's just it's so funny. I mean, it looks oh yeah, you kick a ball that far, but that thing will not go as easily as you might first expect. You look pretty foolish,
I don't think so many people realize the ball's shaped like an egg, right? It doesn't move the way you want it to unless you hit it in that sweet spot, right? It's not a round ball, right? Like a lot of us who kick balls, they kick round balls. Those things will move however you want them to if you hit it. With an egg-shaped ball, if you get underneath it even a little bit, it's spiraling all over the place, right? If you don't hit it in that sweet spot, it's going anywhere except where you want it to go. Right? So, yeah, no, I love the pros versus Joes idea, but a kickoff.
There you go.
Let the kickers... Even better, because I think they did this in Kansas City once, I want to say, with Harrison Butker, when there was fans who were calling out Butker on, like, a missed field goal or something like that. And NFL Primetime brought in, like, found the people on Twitter who were like, man, I could have hit that field goal. That was pathetic. And they're like, here you go. 35-yarder on the left hash, right? This is the exact kick we had. Go ahead and hit it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably the thing is, it has the presentation of being the easiest for someone randomly to come off the street and be able to do, but it's probably one of the more difficult things, depending on your athletic ability and that sort of thing. If you're perhaps a decent basketball player, maybe you can go up and deflect a pass if if you're trying to go against a DB or something like that. But yeah, kicking that'd be that'd probably be some good entertainment in that one.
It's interesting too because it's by far the most volatile position in the NFL, right? But for some reason that makes everybody think it's it's easy, and because people get cut so much, it's because everybody thinks it just should be done 100% of the time. No, it's because of how hard it is that it's volatile.
Um, suppose let's just to hit up on it. It's not obviously anything that's too big a deal. Who knows how much any of these guys are going to play and how seriously the game's taken. But any feel for any one of the teams as far as a win or any MVPs coming out of it that you like as far as someone who's going to show out a little bit maybe in this game.
So right away, my first thought, watching the stuff yesterday, was Russell Wilson's going to win the MVP. Right? I
Right.
I kind of I kind of like the NFC roster a little bit better than the AFC one. Again, it's a Pro Bowl. It's hard to say. They're all right. It's the elite of the elite, uh, who are playing a game that they don't care much about. But I think the NFC roster is the one that's got, just a little bit more juice to it, perhaps. Um, but yeah, no. If I was gonna lean anywhere, Russell Wilson for MVP, I think.
Okay.
The way he was throwing that ball in that passing competition, man. We all forget Russell Wilson, despite the Seahawks having a bad year, is very good. And he's going to land on a very good team at the end of this year. And then everybody's going to remember he's very good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if I had to, it, again, completely volatile. It depends on how much they play, who they play with, yada, yada, yada. Uh, Russell Wilson is one that stands out to me as a potential MVP. Obviously, big play players like Kamara, Debo Samuel, they're also guys who, you get the ball in their hands a few times, they could be gone, and then all of a sudden they're the MVP.
Yeah.
Right? So it's hard to say, but Russ was slinging that ball yesterday, and he looked like he wanted to prove something, and that's a little bit scary in a Pro Bowl when nobody else cares.
Like, oh Jesus, he actually came out to try. Oh boy.
Russ is coming out here and trying.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't help but probably agree with a bit of that. I'm kind of curious. Are the two teams, are they still coached by the head coach of the losing team from each conference? So it would be Shanahan for the NFC. It would be Reed for the AFC.
I think that's the case.
If that's the case, Debo Samuel, lock it in. Shanahan's gonna get it to Devo because he couldn't get it to him in the fucking NFC Championship, so he's gonna make up for it in the Pro Bowl.
No, it's
It's not.
Vrabel and LaFleur are the
Okay,
coaches.
yeah, I'd like to see what Matt LaFleur could do out there with him. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it seems like Russ early on. Even a guy I would say like a yeah, like a Justin Jefferson or something like that for the NFC side. Devo, I really like as far as just having explosive player, someone you give a little like easy little sweep to, and
Yeah.
just let him go, and you break one of those exactly like you kind of brought up. Easy.
And with the half speed game, Debo gets the
Yeah.
ball on the outside. Nobody's gonna full bull rush that dude. And we know how Debo is. He could just break one. Another one if we're going AFC side, Justin Herbert in his first Pro Bowl
Oh yeah,
might be a guy who comes out there and wanting to show something in his first Pro Bowl.
I
I
would,
wouldn't be surprised if Justin Herbert maybe
I was actually
maybe
thinking.
looks pretty good.
I was thinking Mahomes myself just because he's gonna potentially just get out of the pocket and just like open things up. Someone's gonna run free, or he's gonna be able to run free. But yeah, it's the Pro Bowl games. People are getting subbed in. It's the high fives and fun, and probably it's gonna be 70 points a team or something like that. So
Something close.
we'll see what we get. But yeah, good old Pro Bowl. It's a little bit better. At least what they gotta do, I think. I think maybe a better weather location, because surprisingly enough, being cold as hell out there and down in LA when they were doing this, probably not what was thought when they first signed up for it. But yeah, February, certain parts of California gets a little wind chilly. Not too
Yeah.
crazy. Obviously, nothing like you're dealing with up there.
No,
But,
not
yeah.
not quite. We are just as a heads up, we are currently minus 17 with the wind chill.
Oh, wonderful.
So
Um,
not quite that cold, but chilly.
um, yeah, but let's go into it. Let's go into the unexpected news of the week, kind of the main story. A couple things popping up. I think the main one, I think you would agree, is the fallout and the entire story of Brian Flores and his allegations,
For sure.
and the litigation against the NFL, mainly having to do with the uh, authenticity of hiring that he has had to occur with multiple teams while being a free agent coach essentially. Also having to do with ownership and the idea of paying uh, a bonus to coaches to purposely lose games to tank in order to potentially get better positioning and that sort of thing. So kind of two sides of the story almost from Flores. As far as everything I've seen, it's been complete denial from just about every side. Elway and the Broncos came out and have pretty much denied all that. Although Elway actually kind of corroborates the story a little bit in saying that they had just come in off a few hours sleep the night before and flown in the middle of the night, which actually kind of, in a way, uh,
Proves his point.
kind of proves Flores' point. And you kind of think of it on the other side. Can Flores come in potentially disheveled off of little sleep and use that as an excuse
Nah,
in a hiring
fine.
situation?
You'd be out of the job right away. Like
Right,
they wouldn't even consider you as a candidate.
right.
Uh so the first thing I thought of when I heard this story, like the first thing that popped into my head was he's not wrong, but he won't win,
Hmm.
right? And it sucks because the numbers will tell you he's got a point here. The league is 70% black players. 3% of the coaches in the league are black coaches. In other words, there is one, Mike Tomlin. Uh that's a little bit of a eyes wide what's going on here situation. Um Listen, we've known for a while the rules kind of bullshit, right? Like the intent of it is right, but teams circumvent it all the time,
I mean,
right?
yeah,
So I don't know. I he's definitely got a point. Like 100%. He's almost certainly right about this, right? Like I said, in a realistic world where 70% of the players in the league are of a certain ethnicity, you would like to think that close to that amount of the coaches would be that ethnicity, right? I'm not saying it needs to be exactly 70%, but you would imagine somewhere around 50% at least, given how many of the players. And this isn't a new thing that 70% of the players are black. This has been a thing for as long as I've been alive and then some.
yeah.
So either there is an issue in the hiring process that allows just blatant disregard for people of a certain ethnicity, which I think is the more likely one, or there's no candidates out there of that race who just decide we're going to be coaches, which is definitely probably not the case
No.
given how many assistants are out there who are of ethnicity.
Yeah. I
I do I do think there's a problem here. But again, I don't think he can prove this in a court of law.
if he's able to have if we'll see what the evidence kind of plays out. I mean,
That's the
right
million
now,
dollar question.
exactly, and Denver in kind of one of their initial statements said that they have evidence to support their side of the story, as far as logs of when the meeting started and that sort of thing, because he was claiming there was they were an hour late and that's all that. But to your other point, I mean, I think it's one of those things. It's like the Rooney Rule being established on paper for this to put on the guise of having giving an equal opportunity. to others. But yeah, we all know for some it's just going to be a sham. They'll play by the rule and they'll do the interview or whatever, but uh, they have no plans to hire coach, and they're just simply checking a box so that they fulfill the rule. Um, I was actually talking to my brother in law about this, and uh, the idea that you I think in just like kind of standard business operations, I think there's a the non-racial aspect or whatever you could look at, and just the simple it's who you know sort of thing, to where certain owners or whatever are going to have a guy in mind already. Bam, this is our guy going forward. This is going to be our next coach, and anybody else that you're interviewing, including somebody who perhaps a black head coach, for to abide by the Rooney Rule. But it's a sham. They also kind of know it's a sham, but you're having to do it because it's this obligation. I guess in a way it's good in some aspect because it maybe gets eyeballs on somebody who wouldn't otherwise. If you are already set on a coach, you had this guy come in, you were still impressed by him, and maybe you have a good relationship with another owner that perhaps needs a head coach down the line. It's who you know, word of mouth, that sort of thing. So that could apply, but absolutely, I feel like there's it's kind of two sides of the coin on this. It's NFL ownership and kind of like the good old boys club, and like if you're within that group, you keep people within that group and hire from within that group. It's who you know sort of thing. The other side of it being just you're gonna have potentially some old white owners that are kind of stuck in their ways, and they are just not going to accept the idea that someone who looks different than them has the mental wherewithal to be able to coach it, which is absolutely ridiculous. But that's kind of where we're at, and I think it's both sides. I think it's and the kind of only white guys getting hired is kind of goes hand in hand with the nepotism sort of aspect of it, right?
100%.
So, but yeah, I think it's both.
Yeah.
And the Rooney Rule is just kind of this farce that you're able to kind of go behind and abide by the rule and say that everybody had an equal chance. But for some, that's just not going to be the case. I think there's owners out there absolutely that are going to give fair shots, but obviously throughout the league that is not going to be the case. And with a guy like Brian Flores, I mean it's just it's a shame that at this point you can't really see him coaching in the league now because it's gone down this route, right?
Yeah, you would imagine.
And you can't really you can't be certain that this is going to go well as far as the litigation is concerned. I think we'll see as far as evidence and that sort of thing that he has on his end. Because, if it's just he said, that's going to legally be tough to win a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the NFL, just from a pure legal standpoint.
That was my worry, right? Is it's going to be tough to parse out in a he said which one of these is right? Because all the facts, like I said, it's not that hard to look at the numbers and go, something's not right here. But all the NFL has to do is come back and go, listen, the right candidates just aren't popping up at the right time, unfortunately, right? It's a matter of circumstance right now. And these numbers will flip over time as the right candidates appear at the right time, right? And no, that's not true because historically there hasn't been many black coaches in prevalent positions, right? It's just a historical fact. But they can just cling on to that, right? And luck of the draw, man, right? Like these guys are getting shots, but it's just not the right time for some of them, or it's not the right position for some of them, and that's the thing that worries me here. The interesting one was to me was I thought the statements from all of the teams sucked. right? I there was one team who I thought put out a good statement. I'll talk about them in a second. But like the Dolphins, Broncos, Giants statements were all just lawyer 101, deny, deny, deny.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, the NFL themselves, like 2 hours
Yeah.
after the allegations came out, the NFL's coming out and said there's no
No
there's
basis,
there's
no
no
legal.
basis for that. How the fuck do you know? What are you
Yeah.
talking? You can't come out with that. That is absurd from the NFL too. But sorry, to your point with the teams.
I will say, Hugh Jackson, I don't know if you heard about this part. Hugh Jackson joined in on this.
Yeah.
And said the Cleveland Browns had done the same thing to him.
Yeah, they did.
Right, where they had offered him money to lose games. Trust me, I watched Hugh Jackson coach games. They didn't need to do that. He was just fine losing them on his own.
That could be true. That could be true.
I actually didn't hate the Browns' statement when they came out. They said, listen, what he's saying here, categorically untrue. We did not do that. That being said, we made a shit ton of mistakes as an organization when Hugh Jackson was our head coach. Yeah. We admit to that. The problem here is Hugh Jackson will not admit to making those same mistakes. Right? I love the fact that the Browns came out and said, systemically, we screwed up a great deal back in that time. Hugh Jackson's statement here is categorically untrue, but we will admit to failing him a little bit as an organization.
Yeah.
But he is not willing to admit his failings as a head coach.
Right.
I thought as a statement, that's probably like the best one you could have done. We screwed up, you screwed up, your statement's not true, but we admit that we did do some probably pretty shitty things as your team.
Yeah.
Right? Essentially, they're coming out and saying, we tanked. Right? We bought all the shit players. We were doing our best to give you nothing to work with until you had things to work with, and then you still couldn't get it done. Right?
Yeah.
Hugh Jackson was there for 3 seasons.
Yeah. And yeah, in a league where you're cut after a season if it's really looking bad, and it was looking really bad for Hugh, obviously. I think what's interesting in it too is something that I always find comical is like with the Flores statement. I don't know. I don't think Hugh came out with a number as far as what he was getting. He said it was less, right?
I think I don't think he came out with a number, but he did say it was not $100,000. Yeah. It was less than that.
But the fact that Flores is claiming, and whether it's true or not, and we'll see as it goes through, but the $100,000, like that, to put a number on it, it feels it's like comical. It's like you just get that like plus $100,000 to your bank account for each loss. Like I understand if that's the culture you're going with.
Yeah.
And you might be trying to present that, but to actually put a number behind it, it makes it seem like a Madden mechanic, right? Like, hey, lose this game, you get this little pop-up text box for your next game. It's like, hey, lose the next game, you get a nice little bonus. Yeah. Your sleazy owner comes in, he's like, we're fucked up anyways. Hey, here's some money. Like, well, we honestly, I know a guy in our Madden League who would absolutely utilize that. We'll call it the Tank City mode. And you could just fucking lose games on purpose to raise your own personal phones up. I think it's a very good Madden mechanic. We'll see it in 2023.
Either that or Blitz the League. That definitely seems like a cutscene that would have come up in Blitz the League.
Mutant League Football, yeah, exactly. Man, yeah, absolutely.
Having a rough season. Team's not good enough this year. Go out there and throw 3 picks, and we'll toss you $100,000.
It's comical to have a number behind it. So I
do. That's the one thing that came out that I was like, I don't know why you'd lie about it, but I'm also not 100% sure I believe it, because as an owner, there's a lot easier ways to get your team to lose, right? If your team's playing well early in the season, oh shit, we just traded Xavier Howard to Buffalo for like 3 first-rounders. Oh no, we traded Fitzpatrick. He played his way into a spot where he was worth a lot of draft picks to us. So you don't need to put a number behind it. Just get rid of all the good players. That's what tanking teams have done for years.
and I think that's kind of why I'm a little apprehensive to like really jump behind either side, because it's kind of with the two sides of it. It's like, why would Flores really lie about this and pretty much
That's the thing that's bothering
tank
me
his
too. Is
whole
like,
career.
listen, he's got no reason, especially that part, because, like I said, his initial basis of racial discrimination in hiring practice is provable.
Yeah,
I do believe there is a chance that that is very provable, especially given the Belichick text message he got, where he was like,
yeah,
where Belichick texts him and goes, "Hey, congrats on the job," and Flores is like, "I'm being interviewed on Thursday, but I'm feeling good about it, Bill," and he goes, "Ah, shit, I thought I was texting Brian Dabble. That's my
yeah,
bad."
yeah. Or like my when I was talking with my brother-in-law about this, he actually had a little bit different interpretation. It was kind of interesting because I think a lot of us read it that way. Also, might have been, and this would be more toward the favor of these teams being accused, or specifically for this one, the Giants, um, would be that Belichick had heard information and thought he had heard Flores' name. Actually, did know he was talking to Flores, but then realized that it was actually the name that got dropped to him was Dabble, meaning that there was a preconceived idea of who they were going to hire anyway, sort of thing. So, like, that would be the other way to take those messages. I guess
Yeah.
we'll find out about how, like, I mean, I got to imagine Belichick's going to have to actually
Yep.
speak to these at some point if it's going to a a legal standpoint that
Oh,
that
100%. And this
perhaps is
is,
going to be the case. So
yeah, and those messages are such a big part of this right now, right? There's such damning evidence, really. One way or the other, right? Depending on
yeah,
how you read them. That's really damning evidence if Brian Flores is like, my interview's on Thursday. What do you mean they already hired somebody?
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
That's some pretty damning evidence as far as what we talked about earlier. Teams just checking off boxes for the Rooney Rule,
yeah,
right? Yeah, we already hired Brian Dabble, but we'll interview Flores. Yeah, sure, bring him in. Yeah,
yeah.
good. He's drawn a sketch of like Garfield eating lasagna while he's
It's
doing the interview.
yeah. The only thing with that specifically is that I feel like that's kind of a uh, maybe unspoken but somewhat understood thing in kind of just general businesses. Like they will have a guy in mind. They'll have a bunch of people go through a hiring process because that's what they're supposed to do. But they got their guy already in mind, and so it's a chance for anybody, regardless of what
Yeah,
who they are and what their background is.
I will say I did have a
But
phone interview yesterday with a place that had told me that they had already filled the position, but they they liked my resume. They wanted to at least do the interview for future reference. So that could you're right. That is a thing in hiring practice. Um, but it's awfully suspicious that we've had a few black coaches now come out and say, "This has happened to me too."
yeah,
Right? Where it's like, I was interviewed after the guy who had already been hired just to tick the box. Um, it'll be interesting to see. You did say that it harms his ability to become a head coach in the NFL. Apparently not, because according to the rumors, he is still the favorite for the Houston Texans job.
yeah. I mean, that's kind of interesting. I wonder what, because at
Listen,
that
if
point
I'm the
it's
Houston
like it's.
Texans, I'd hire him.
I mean, yeah, he is kind of the
He's a good
best.
coach.
I mean, he's probably the best head coaching candidate out there right now, I would say.
Yeah,
Uh,
I have trouble thinking of somebody better.
so yeah, I would agree with that. I just think from the standpoint of like ownership is that good old boys club. Like NFL ownership is a tight group, even though there has been some new blood and some other folks that have come in, but in general, like they probably want to like stick by their people, and if you have someone who's kind of dissenting amongst that, what are you gonna piss off Jerry? Jerry Jones is going to take lightly to people, like potentially fucking with other teams that are maybe his friends. So it's like, it's just an interesting dynamic too, as far as these fuckers at the top. Maybe there is some potential, a shakeup in regards to that. It's
I
always it's always kind of interesting with having billionaires potentially fighting amongst one another.
I will say with the Texans, I don't think Janice McNair knows jack shit about football. I'm pretty sure she inherited the team from her dead husband,
Yeah,
right? I don't know how much she knows about football. So there's a good chance with the Texans. Uh Nick Casario is just kind of running all the shit, right? Like he goes, "This is the guy I'm going to hire," and Janice goes, "Yeah, go ahead. I don't care." Right? So if
yeah,
it, which could make a difference there, right? Uh, because if that's the case, I don't think Nick Casario gives a shit about the Dolphins, Broncos, or Giants owners. I think Nick Casario probably realizes his job's fucking on the line if they don't start winning some games soon.
it's a
And
good
if he
point.
thinks
It's a
Brian
good point.
Flores is the guy who can win games, and Janice McNair's not going to go, well, the other owners are against this guy, so
Yeah,
we're not going to hire him, then why wouldn't you?
yeah, yeah. Perhaps you bring up a good point. I mean, if you're talking about a GM that makes to make this call, the thing is, there are gonna be the other owners, that sort of thing, who are gonna be in her ear, and it's kind of like Um, she might be a completely hands off owner and won't give a shit. But that's kind of interesting in that regard. Um, when you do have someone who's just kind of taken over and someone underneath is kind of running the show and their job's going to be on the line. Yeah, it's a good point. And I guess we could touch on it real quick. I mean, we had it just this morning, right? We had to kind of go away from the Brian Flores coaching situation into some other coaches. We have Doug Peterson going to the Jags, eh? Like he made it happen. We've talked about this before. I've brought this up before. Doug Peterson laid low for a year. Nobody fucking remembers the shit show that was the Eagles at the end of his tenure there. Gets rehired on as a head coach. Bam, another paycheck for Doug Peterson. He got it done. Um, quite a this it should be better than Urban, right?
You would think, I don't know, was this really the guy? Like, was Doug Peterson really the guy?
No.
I know he's got a Super Bowl ring and everybody's going to say forever, he won a Super Bowl, but kind of got a little bit of a fortunate break with that Super Bowl in general. Like, Nick Foles all of a sudden became Superman for like a month. It's not like they were a great team that year going into it, right? They
No.
were a good team that had their starting quarterback go down and all of a sudden looked like they were going to be done. And like I said, Nick Foles catches fire. After that, never really did anything. I mean, kind of everybody who he touched from that point onward was made noticeably worse by the fact that they played with Doug Peterson. Um, their last candidate they interviewed was Rich Bisaccia. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, they're going to bring in Bisaccia. What a great signing. This dude brought life to an organization that looked like they were dead, gets to go to another organization that looks like they're dead. No, goes to Doug Peterson. Again, I don't know. I don't love the hire. Um, I don't rate Doug Peterson all that highly as a head coach.
I I think
I,
he'll do fine with. I mean, what's the expectation here for the Jags, right? I think he'll do fine for a couple years, and then the Jags will move on from him. He might
Probably, yeah.
he'll tread water. He might get this team to, like,
500, maybe a game over.
I think that would be a success. I would think
Oh, I'm
that.
talking over the course, like if he stays there 2, 3 years. That's the limit. Is like
Yeah,
they build up all these draft picks and stuff like that. Maybe they can get about 9-8, 8-9, that range. That's Doug Peterson's ceiling, in my opinion, as the Jaguars head coach, if they bring in all the right players.
yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot to go into that. I think this is going to be more of a. I mean, yeah, with what they have,
Oh, next year's
I
gonna be
think
rough.
I think, yeah. Even if you're talking a couple years down the line, I'm thinking this is like a 6-win team.
That
six
that's
eleven,
more
something like
realistic,
that.
I think. Like I said, I'm talking absolute ceiling is 9 wins under Doug Peterson.
The only saving grace is they are in that AFC South, which does have the Texans in that as well. So I guess they have, another, um, you know, organization kind of going through it right now to potentially be able to pick up some wins. And obviously, Jaguars did have some surprising games this season. They weren't winless, but it was it was definitely you wonder, Trevor Lawrence, like, I think there's maybe this expectation that Peterson's gonna maybe be able to work with him and develop him a bit from a really rough first year. Yeah, I don't know if I see it. So I think this next season, as you said, likely a bust, and hopefully he get. I do hope he gets the run for at least a couple of years because it's such a shame when you just have this revolving door of coaches in and out. You can't get any traction going, and that's no fun.
If this is your guy, he's got to be your guy for a couple years. Like I get Urban Meyer this year had to go because not just because of the team performance, but the shit show around him.
Yeah, of course.
But if Doug Peterson's your guy, if you believe in Doug Peterson, you got to give him at least a few years. If things don't start to change in a few years, yeah, absolutely. But you gotta give him a run. But
Right.
honestly, to me, the Doug Peterson hire just continues an offseason of really bad coaching hires for the most part. We talked about Hackett, who I actually did like as the head coach of the Broncos, and Eberflus last week. Uh, we had mentioned Josh McDaniels' name was circulating around the Raiders. He ended up getting hired by the Raiders.
Yeah.
I mentioned my thoughts on Josh McDaniels. This dude was a shit head coach before,
Yeah.
and the Belichick coaching tree doesn't produce great head coaches more often than not. I think that was a really bad signing for the Raiders. I don't think it's going to work out. I don't like Josh McDaniels at all as a head coach. Brian Dabble has done some good things in the past, but do I think he was the best guy for that Giants job? No, probably not. Um, you're bringing in a guy who's made his mark uh building up Josh Allen, really, right? That's his bread and butter right now getting hired. Is
Right.
he's been the OC for Josh Allen. You don't have a Josh Allen level quarterback there, and you don't have one coming in. Right?
Right.
It's not like the Giants are going to have Josh Allen sitting there to come back in. I don't know. I don't know if Dabble's the guy there, right? Like you want to bring in somebody I think who's got experience working with kind of minimal talent. Not a guy who had Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and um blanking on the other wide receiver out there. Uh Mr. Anti-Vax.
Oh,
Can't
Beasley, Cole.
Cole Beasley, right? Like this guy just had boatloads of talent around him. And yeah, he did a great job with it. But he hasn't shown the ability to coach up that team that has not a lot of talent around it. I just don't think this was the right job for him. I hope I'm wrong. It sounds like the Vikings are going to hire Kevin O'Connell. I'm not going to talk too much about that until it's made official. They can't hire him until after the Super Bowl. But as a whole, like I feel like most of these teams have swung and missed on their coaching.
Yeah, I I suppose it's kind of two remains to be seen in some circumstances, and certain teams in certain other places. I think for a guy like Dabble, it's like, what's the expectation here?
Yeah,
NFC East, it's a scrappy division, but at the same time, you're gonna be taking over for a team that couldn't even get wins in that
yeah.
bad division, right? Um, so maybe some leniency in regards to that. I think the fact that, yeah, some of the names like from last season, as far as the two that I'm thinking of, obviously we talked about Flores, and then yeah, Rich Bisaccia, like that was exciting to hear about that, and him potentially landing somewhere else. Um, I I expect he'll land as a special teams coordinator somewhere, and he'll do well there, hopefully, and maybe be able to get back to that at some point. We'll see.
Hey, Green Bay, maybe make that one work.
That would be actually, that's. That would be a big change for them as far as actually investing into their special teams. That would be a pretty good call on their part. Um, the the interesting kind of back and forth that we were hearing about the Vikings job and Jim Harbaugh being floated out there. Jim Harbaugh actually being floated out for two different jobs, right? Doesn't go to either one of them. Sticks in Michigan. Um,
Surprised me.
I
I
mean,
mentioned I
him at
mentioned
the
it last week,
Vikings would have
right?
been interesting. It would have been very interesting. Him at the Vikings. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I mentioned it last week. I thought he would look to maybe get out of Michigan because the Big Ten is there's a lot of strong teams building up in the Big Ten around where he's at right now at Michigan.
yeah,
And yeah, he just made a playoff at Michigan. But you look at his time at Michigan as a whole, in the Big Ten East Conference, third, fourth, gets a tie for first in 2018, and then third, tied fifth, first. Right. And even that first again, it's a tied first. He's never won the Big Ten East outright. Usually they finish mid pack. You look at teams like Iowa, Ohio State is obviously always a threat. Michigan State, even teams like Wisconsin, Penn State. There's a lot of teams in there that at any given year can catch up to you. And Michigan has not recruited particularly well under Jim Harbaugh. So I thought this might have been a good chance for him to cut bait. You know, he just made a playoff at Michigan, looked at pretty highly in the NFL right now. I thought that Minnesota job was his for sure. Uh, he says he's done chasing the NFL. I don't buy that much. I think, you know, if Michigan has another season next year like they have the last couple outside of obviously this past year where they finished third, fourth, somebody's going to take a bite at him again and he's going to cut bait for that. I truly believe that. I'm kind of surprised it wasn't the Minnesota job. I figured it's a pretty good job, that Minnesota job, right?
yeah,
Really, the biggest thing you need is a quarterback. And there's going to be a lot of them out there this year, right? Could you do something with Kirk Cousins? Sure. Absolutely. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be hungry for a quarterback, and Kirk Cousins has sexy numbers. He's not a sexy quarterback, as we've talked about, but his numbers are sexy.
yeah.
I think Minnesota's actually a really good job. I kind of thought Jim Harbaugh was going to jump at that one when I heard he was interviewing for it. Kind of surprised, but you know, the offer wasn't there. He's getting a lot of money at Michigan,
Yeah,
right? Like a
that's
lot of money at Michigan.
that's what I'm kind of seeing. Is like I think for Harbaugh right now, it's just uh, granted you have to do the recruiting and all that sort of thing. There's a little bit more aspect, I guess, to that side of the job. But you're definitely like the guy when you're
Yeah.
the head coach in college there, and I guess yeah, his recruiting hasn't been good either.
No.
But yeah, certainly the payday's there for him, and uh, it's that NFC North. Obviously, we'll see what ends up with the Packers there. You got the Bears that you should be able to make a nice jump, and as much as we love the Lions over here, you can't expect them to make a big jump.
They'll
Vikings are
make a little bit of an improvement, but they're not going to be challenging for the division or anything crazy like that. It does look
for
like the division's kind of opening up for Minnesota a little bit.
exactly. That's what that's kind of what I'm thinking. Is like there's a real opportunity, and this was a very disappointing season for Minnesota. This could have easily, I think, been a playoff team considering what they
100%.
have, and they've really underperformed. Thanks in I think a good part to Zimmer. And yeah, see you later. And you get somebody in there that could maybe manage this a little bit better. Yeah, you're looking at a real potential for a playoff team.
Now, I
I
will say, I do really like Kevin O'Connell. I know he's done a lot of good things with that not that Vikings, the Rams offense. Before then he had done a lot of good things with the Washington football team slash Redskins
Yeah,
as their quarterbacks coach, right? You look at a lot of average to below average quarterbacks that played really well under O'Connell. I think that that's the kind of guy who deserves a shot, right? And I think if that dude gets the Minnesota job, he could be the kind of guy who we could be talking about in the next line of like, here's the guy who did the move, right? You go from backup quarterback to coordinator to, or to quarterback's coach to coordinator to head coach, right? And you do it seamlessly. This could be the case for Kevin O'Connell. If he is the guy, I think it's a great landing spot for him, especially if they're keeping Cousins with his like he turned Fitzpatrick into a Pro Bowler, right? I love Ryan Fitzpatrick. I love the fact that he comes and goes like a wizard sometimes and just disappears and then reappears out of nowhere. But he never looked close to a Pro Bowler. He's done great things with average quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And boy, oh boy, if I had to build the mold of an average quarterback from the ground up, it'd look a lot like Kirk Cousins.
It's yeah.
So
For Kirk, I mean, he's just he's right there. I mean, there's a few quarterbacks you're gonna look at. I think going into this off season. I've heard some weird stories as far as Carr, Garoppolo, Cousins, like a lot of those right in the middle, kind of
that
good.
mid-tier of
They can,
quarterback.
yeah, they show flashes of good play. They're not like completely terrible as far as turnover, touchdown to turnover ratios, that sort of thing. Have potential for good games, have potential for bad games, that sort of thing. So it's gonna be very interesting. And a lot of teams, yeah, I think they could utilize a guy like that. I look at situations like Pittsburgh right now, and I think we've talked about this before. Pittsburgh isn't. I don't think Pittsburgh, Tomlin, they're not trying to. I don't think get a young guy and work on this thing. They're trying to still keep this going and hopefully be able to, fix themselves up on the lines in the trenches.
Yeah.
Maybe more so than like trying to dip into, trying to find a young quarterback to go off of. So yeah, they might be in, one of those teams that's definitely in play for one of those mid rangers that could get you there. You could work an offense around those guys. So will be interesting going forward. A team that they kind of had that mediocre quarterback situation as well. Also had a pretty mediocre name going forward now. Welcome to the Washington Commies. As I
The
like to call
commies.
the Commanders. Washington has decided on the Commanders. There were quite a few names that were thrown out for quite a while. This has been a 2-year process, and Snyder and that group decided on the Commanders for their new name. Obviously, embattled franchise as it is. They have lawsuits and email scandals and bullshit just up the wazoo. But yeah, we have a new name for Washington, and it kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's bad. I will say, I've mentioned urinating tree on here before. Love his stuff. I think he's hilarious. But he put out a tweet yesterday that made me laugh. That I was like, "This is how I get behind the commies." So he tweeted, "If the Commanders are going to be nicknamed the Commies going forward, just embrace it. The next rebuild they go through needs to be called the Great Leap Forward. Any mass firing should be the Four Pest campaign. If Snyder's forced to sell, cultural revolution."
That's right.
That I'm all in on. That's the only way you make this name work for me. What a horrendous name.
Yeah.
They had what, 12 finalist names? I think I distinctly remember when I was rating them in my head. Commanders was like 11th. I think I only like Defenders worse.
Yeah, Defenders is bad.
Uh,
Yeah.
Guys, there is a movie about the football team in the city of Washington with a much beloved movie star starring as the quarterback. Why don't you just call yourself the Sentinels? It's right there.
Yeah.
You have Keanu Reeves come in before the first Sentinels game. Do the pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever. Bring out the Sentinels. You have Al Michaels calling, and here come the Sentinels. You have all of it. It's ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's definitely just went with the worst
Freaking
name kind of.
Commanders, man. It's not even the Commanders, which is it's. I would say the biggest knock I have on the name Washington Commanders is it is boring. Right? It sounds like a USFL team. Like the USFL would have a team called the Washington Commanders for sure.
it's it's three syllable too, so it works the worst.
Yeah.
Like the only reason the 49ers works is because you could shorten that to Niners.
The Niners.
Let's go Niners. So you could work with a longer name, but you go with the three syllable. It
The
the
short form
classic
is
you can't
only
do
commas.
you can't do the classic let's go. So now you gotta do something else. And like there have been posts about them trying to come up with chants. They're fucking horrific. There's one after like this the farmers insurance. Uh,
Oh
we are
no.
commanders.
Da.
It's
Oh
fucking
god.
awful.
Oh
You're gonna try to do that in the
god.
stadium? You think that's gonna fucking work? It's gonna be
No.
horrendous.
I
Uh,
think they just play the Russian national anthem before
I
before
think
the games. Just let them belt out the
I think
Russian national anthem. Great one.
when they go on the road and the visiting team comes out, you know the home fans, the drunk assholes, are just gonna be like, "Commies, commies," fucking the classic Daryl
Oh.
Strawberry, fucking Daryl.
If they get a good defense, it needs to be called the Iron Curtain. I'm just all in on the commies, man.
Oh man, it's just not good.
Awful. Swing
So
and
many
a
so
miss.
many better. Like I even like stuff like the Armada better than
The
that.
Red Wolves wasn't bad.
Red Wolves is fine. The Hogs, if you go to
Yeah.
that, because they already had that established. Like that was part of their fan base, even though they were going that the Redskins moniker prior. Um, that was they had the hog heads in the stands and that sort of thing. So like you could have leaned into that and gone with the Red Hogs or whatever the hell else they had there. Wild Hogs, I don't know what the hell but yeah, Commanders, it's bad, and it's already a AFL team's name. I think it's the San Antonio Commanders, which has a way better ring to it too. It has uh, it ends with the O with San Antonio, so Commanders kind of leans into it a little bit more. It's not really alliteration, but it has a better flow to it. Washington Commanders. It's
Yeah,
so
it feels clunky.
stiff. It's
Feels
so
clunky.
stiff. It's
The
like
Warriors would have been better. I know, again, kind of boring, but it's at least Washington Warriors. You get the double W thing.
yeah.
Works off of that.
And the
I'm with
logo
you.
sucks. The logo's there's just
Yeah,
still a
the
fucking
logo's
W.
bad.
Like they like so it was like and that's what the San Antonio Commanders have for theirs is they have like a little like cavalry saber.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, work that in. If you're gonna go with that, you can kind of lean into that sort of thing. You got to have like a proper mascot. What the hell's the Commanders mascot gonna be?
They just gotta. I know you haven't watched Gridiron Heights. They gotta get Teamy the Team Monster to be their mascot. I don't care. I was actually growing comfortable
uh,
with the Washington football team nickname.
and
I was on board with them keeping it.
my
With them just being the Washington football team.
so my brother-in-law when we were talking about this, he totally was like, yeah, like all the fucking English football clubs, they're FCs. They go by why not just football team for the NFL one? And then I think AJ Hawk on the McAfee show, he's like, yeah, you're already the football team. I kind of got used to it. I kind of like it at this point. You should have stuck with
It grew
that.
on me.
It's gonna take a while to get used to Commanders. It's gonna be stupid. Just stuck with football team. I actually would not have minded that at all if they just stuck with football team. There's something kind of cheesy, but then it's WFT. You
Yeah.
start to get used to it. Yeah, it's the football team. Like
like
I
you
don't
said,
know. There's something.
anytime that you can acronize something like that, it's really easy to chant like WFT, WFT, right? It's really easy to get a chant going for that, right? Uh, just lean into it. Frickin' reach out to Bleacher Report. Allow them to let you use Teamy the Team Monster. Like,
If you
at
want
that
to,
point, just lean into it. Everybody kind of gotten used to it. It honestly grew on me. I did by the end of like even by the end of last season, forget this season, I didn't hate the name Washington football team. At first I was like, oh God, bad. By the end of it, it's like, yeah, Washington football team. Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
It does have that connection to like you were mentioning, like uh European football clubs,
Yeah.
right? All of them are FC. Liverpool FC, Everton FC, Manchester United FC, right? They're all
And
FC.
and some of those teams do have like a mascot pseudonym, right?
Yeah,
For
all of them do.
yeah,
Liverpool would be the Reds.
there we go. Yeah,
Manchester United's the Red Devils. Everton's the Toffees. Right? They all have things like that that are like nicknames to their teams, right? And like you were mentioning, the Washington team had already kind of gravitated to the hog thing, anyways, right?
yeah,
So you could just be Washington football team, right? The crowd can, the crowd can talk about the team as the Hogs,
yeah.
right? That's their thing.
Claim two names. I mean, a lot of marketing opportunity there. Hey, that would have been a good play, I think. Actually,
I
now that I think about it more and more, I think they could have gone for it. And
I by the end of this season, by the way, would read through all the names and I was like, just stick with football team.
yeah.
It's the best one you got.
And if you really want to like lean into that market, and all sorts of random ass companies are doing that nowadays, it's perfect. The WFT NFTs, and you can fucking lean into that stupid ass
Oh
market
God,
too.
no!
It's horrible, but that's
Changed
what's
my mind. I'm all on
This shit's
Commanders.
happening. Yeah, exactly. I'm all on Commanders. It totally would. You could just you could totally like do the logo for it too, make it real fucking cheesy, like overlapping letters and shit. Yeah, I see it, but here we are. We are with the Commanders, who are, all things being said, it's they went through a season in which they could have potentially been in there for the playoffs. So it'll be interesting in this next one coming up. Um, what the squad's able to do. Obviously, they have a lot of shit that they have to deal with in as far as a legal standpoint with their ownership and all that. So who knows where that goes? But the on the field product is they're in an interesting position. And again, that NFC East, who the fuck knows what we're gonna get next season? I mean, you think Cowboys, but then what else, right?
Yeah, I'll just quickly for 2 seconds talk about the Dan Schneider stuff since you kind of brought it up in passing
Yeah.
there. We all know he's a shithead,
Yes.
right? There's no surprise that like the dude has been alleged of sexual assaulting multiple women at this point, harassing many more employees. He's gonna be forced out at some point by the NFL because these things are just gonna keep piling up and he's gonna be forced out. There's no point in us continuing to go on about it until this happens. There's gonna be more people. There was 6 more people put on this committee today. There's gonna be more. He's gonna be forced out. That's all I got to say. Just
Yeah.
let the process happen.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you're only going to be able to find out so much until they really start diving in. The one interesting thing, and I brought this up to you, is that I'm hearing that there's the like release of some of the records, but Snyder is the one who actually gets to dictate whether it goes public or not. That makes no fucking sense to me,
Nope.
considering they are almost definitely going to put him and his organization and potentially others in a very bad light. And if he can prevent that from getting out, he will. I don't know. He will still be held in a legal sense for that stuff.
Yes.
So it's
And all that stuff can still be subpoenaed, right?
yeah,
Like
that's
that's the big thing. Is
so it was interesting even hearing that in the first place. It's like
yeah,
but
right
this is,
now that's the case, but I think if
Yeah.
this stuff gets subpoenaed, it's then public record,
yes.
right? Anything to do with an official trial is public record. So if it sounds like this is going to go to official trial, and if it does, then they're going to get subpoenaed, and then at that point we'll be able to see all these records.
Yeah.
But until that point, yeah, it sounds like he's got control of it, which again, like you said, it's stupid, but hey, it's the justice system for you.
Yeah.
It like I said, I don't want to get too much into it because I've wasted more of my breath on Dan Schneider than I really ever should.
Yeah.
Just let the legal process play out. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm very positive he'll be forced out by the NFL, kind of similar to the Clippers owner there, Donald Donald Glover, was that it?
No.
Donald
Sterling, right?
Donald Sterling.
Yes.
Yeah, no, not Donald Glover. I love Donald
Donald Glover's all
Glover.
good, hopefully.
Donald Glover's great. I'm cool with Donald
No,
Glover.
no
Donald
subpoenas for
Sterling.
Don Glove, all right? Yeah, we
Donald
don't.
Sterling.
Yeah.
A similar thing happened with him. Allegations balled up. Everybody was like, "Oh, here we go. It's going to be covered up." And then eventually, there was just too much. The dam broke, and he was forced out.
Yeah.
Feels like the same thing's happening to Dan Schneider.
Yeah, I it's kind of a long time coming.
Yeah,
He's without all this shit, he's already been pretty garbage, and it was kind of like, when the fuck is this guy gonna stop ruining this franchise? But now he might not have a say in it. So here we go. But let's go on. Let's move on. Let's move on to some teams that actually got some things right this season. Let's take a look at last week championships games. If you want to,
really quick, I got one thing I want to bring up before we get into it.
Sure.
Because this seems like a good time to fit it in, and that's the Senior Bowls going on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's jump in.
So really quickly, just a few names I want to throw out there who have been ridiculous in Senior Bowl practices all week, and this is the stuff that people look at. Fun fact for people who don't know much about the Senior Bowl, nobody gives a shit about how you play in the Senior Bowl game. It's all about the practices leading up to the Senior Bowl. That's when you got all the scouts out there. That's when everybody's at your practice looking, breaking down everything. Because the Senior Bowl, fun fact, is a lot like the Pro Bowl. In that everybody's going to play a certain amount of minutes. Nobody's looking to get hurt. The thing that a lot of people care about is the practices. So, couple names that have been really brought up. Malik Willis, the quarterback from Liberty. We've talked about him before as a part of that group of quarterbacks. Kind of established himself as the guy this week among the quarterbacks. Been unbelievable throughout this process. A lot of people comparing him to Josh Allen this week, the way he looks. This guy's going to go pretty early. It sounds like, right around that 8, 9, 10 stretch where you got Atlanta, then Denver, then somebody, might be New Orleans or something like that after that. All three teams kind of need a quarterback. Washington Commies. Expect him to go at that point. He's at an unbelievable stretch here. Jalen Tolbert is a name that shocked the hell out of me, has just shot up rankings. This is a guy who coming into the season was like a 4th, 5th round pick. A lot of people think he might have broken into the first round this week. Wow. Not particularly big, has a problem with the dropsies sometimes, but unbelievably physically, just breaking apart from defenders like crazy. 30, 40 yards down the field, nobody can keep up with him. Right? He's got big play written all over him. And then another name, just one name that I'm going to throw out there that I think could be the steal of the draft. And it's Jermaine Johnson from Florida State.
Okay. Nice.
Jermaine Johnson, some people might know him from Last Chance U. Right? He was a part of Last Chance U. He, this week, has been murdering everybody. It doesn't matter what offensive lineman they line him up against. He's just killing them off the line. Had 11.5 sacks this year. The comparison that everybody's saying with the way that he's moved this year and then having a Senior Bowl like this is Montez Sweat. So if you want the idea of like the comparison here, that level of good. Jermaine Johnson right now is projected to be an early 2nd rounder. Nah, he's going in the 1st, and probably to a team that will be very happy to take him in the 1st round. This guy looks like the real deal, and he's been the one more than anybody from what I've heard and seen. You always get videos come out from these things, and it's usually good video unless you're the lineman who's getting destroyed by Jermaine Johnson every time. He's the name to look out for, I think, going into this draft, who's really going to shoot up draft boards. He a lot of people liked him in Last Chance U. A lot of people think he was the guy who really came off well. Goes Florida State. just dominates at Florida State. Now he's looking good to make that move up to the next level. So that's the guy who I think has done the most good for his draft stock
Nice.
in the Senior Bowl. Just wanted to bring that up real quick
Oh yeah.
because it's fun things. We're getting close to that time where mock drafts and stuff
It's
like that really start to become important. So
exactly a question I'll have for you, as you have a little bit more of
yeah,
your eye on the college game and that sort of thing. You're talking about the workouts for the Senior Bowl. Absolutely, that's something that's kind of gotten more too. It's gotten
yeah,
more popular.
yeah,
You as well in popularity are teams having pro days, multiple receivers and that sort of thing, along with usually like a feature quarterback being able
yeah.
to show out. That was obviously a lot of the hype last year. A lot of those pro days were big for some of those quarterbacks that went in the first round. And then obviously the combine. That's going to
Yeah.
be kind of the one right there, leading up to the draft. I mean, do you think it's just like as far as success as far as moving up, because you're thinking potentially guys moving up multiple rounds based on how they're
Yeah.
doing in this senior day. Are you thinking it's like you still have to maybe show out for a pro day afterward and still have a good performance, and then you can really kind of lock that in? Um, can you just do like just a pro day now, and you don't even have to worry about really doing combine stuff? Because I see a lot of people more. It seems like more players, especially even top players, don't do combines
Yeah.
as often as they used to.
So what I will say is it really depends on who you are. Tavion Thibodeau, for example, does not need to be at the Senior Bowl, does not need to go to a combine. His big thing is going to be pro days, and not because of what he does on the field. You got to remember, pro days are established for these players to show their absolute peak,
Right.
right? No, very rarely do you see a player go out and struggle at a pro day, right? That does if that happens, that's a big drop on the board
Sure.
because these are literally designed for like here's a showcase for what you can do at your absolute best. The biggest thing about pro days are the interviews, right? That's where you make or break your selection. As far as moving up the board, I think the Senior Bowl is the place where you really make your biggest movement, right? So if you are that late first round guy and you're at the Senior Bowl, those workouts are a good chance for you to shoot a guy like Malik Willis, for example, who a lot of people had as their third, fourth quarterback on the list, is now almost universally thought of as the number one.
Right.
After senior day, he's jumped ahead of Pickett and Corral and almost universally believed to be the best quarterback on the board. Um, if you're looking to move up the board, the Senior Bowl is where you're going to do it because when you're matched up in these situations, they're not matched up for receiver A to succeed. You match up the best receivers against the best cornerbacks because you want to see who stands out. So when guys do stand out, they're doing it in spite of the situation, not because of it. So when guys like Malik Willis succeed, for example, he's facing the best pass rushers that they can send at him, the best cornerbacks that they can cover him with,
Right.
right? Whereas at a pro day, you're essentially throwing to open wide receivers. You're not getting rushed,
Yeah.
right? Essentially, it's like just huck 30 deep balls to see your accuracy kind of thing, right? Huck some underneath routes. We're gonna, it's gonna be basically what you do every day at practice. So with the Senior Bowl, it's a great place for you to move up. The Combine is really just for guys who there's physical question marks around, right? So because of the way the Combine works, nobody cares about the play workouts at the Combine, right? You never hear somebody go to the Combine and go, this quarterback at the Combine went 30 for 30 in his passing drill, man. We That guy shot up the board. You hear that quarterback at the combine ran a 4.40, and that was not what we had anywhere close, right? So it depends on what you need to improve in the eyes of the scouts.
Right.
If you're a guy who everybody knows the talent, but there's questions about injuries that you've had, the combine's going to be the place where you're going to show out the most because you're going to be able to blow their projections of your physicals out of the water. And then at that point, that's where you go up. For a lot of the guys I mentioned today, they were guys who, with the exception of Malik Willis, who was going to go in the first round, but probably a lot later than he is now. A lot of the guys I named, second, third round guys who have shot up into maybe late first round, early second round, made themselves a decent chunk of money because of it. So it all depends on where people have questions about you. If there's questions about you mentally, pro days are going to be the most important. If there's questions about you physically, combine's going to be most important. And if you're one of those guys whose talent is being kind of questioned, the senior bowl is where you're going to move.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely interesting how we do have, off season and scouting, and that has now, it's become off season has become its own season in a way, as
So
far
much
as
so.
for these kids, and yeah, exactly the up and down movement, and you know that stuff's huge when you're talking about you you're talking about kids who have had 3-4 years of college game tape that you could look at, and they've been evaluated to a certain way. But if they perform well within these couple months or so, they're able to really show out in something like a Senior Bowl and something like a pro day. They're able to really put it together. You're talking millions,
Yeah.
millions. Where granted, you don't want to like shortcut the work you put in beforehand, and you have to get up to a certain point, I think, to even be on that, being recognized as like a fourth rounder that can move up a couple rounds
Yeah.
potentially. Um, it's definitely an interesting dynamic that you have nowadays, and I think, yeah, the way that the combine has almost, you're talking about what I would say less than a decade ago, where combine numbers are kind of
Everything.
everything that everybody talked about, and now it's
Nobody
really,
cared about your senior bowl or your pro day.
yeah,
It was everything that you did at the combine. And it's so interesting now because so much of the off season is as much about avoiding landmines
yeah,
than it is actually doing well in the things you do. Malik Willis, I'd be shocked if he goes to the combine because he's already thought of as a physical freak, right? You're going to go to your pro days where everything's going to be set up for you to do your best. You're Malik Willis at a pro day is going to run zero point 0.1 second faster than he will at the combine because the combine is a neutral site. You're not designed to be at your best, right? It's designed to be an even playing field.
yeah. And I'll
So things like that are very interesting too. You got to have the right people in your ears.
Yeah, and something that I just kind of thought of right now, it's going to be a very interesting landscape going forward for these college athletes, because you got this name likeness thing that has now come around for these guys.
Yep.
You know, how big are these events going to be? These things could really start popping off. I feel, as far as like, certain high, marquee players, their pro days. Like, how much of a fucking event is this going to be? Um, how much money are these guys going to be seeing beforehand? How much, as far as the money these guys see beforehand, is going to dictate their market in the professional league, in the NFL? A lot of things to be seen, and I think good for all these college guys that are able to really make themselves millions really over the idea of a couple days of work, if they're
Three
really able
days
to
of
show down.
practices.
Right.
The people I was talking about at the Senior Bowl, that's 3 days of practices that made them millions of dollars. Jermaine Johnson literally moved up 2 rounds in many people's mock drafts from a late second, early third to a late first.
Yeah.
Right? Like 2 rounds of money. It's incredible. And
Crazy.
first round money versus third round money is a big difference.
Oh God, yes, yeah,
Right? Malik Willis, 20th pick money versus 8th pick money, big difference, right? Like these guys are have 3 days to essentially make an amount of money that in their head seemed absurd when they joined college.
yeah, and yeah. Thank you. I think that was a pretty awesome kind of analysis and breakdown of what this off season could be. Yeah, more things kind of getting into the fold there, so it makes it very interesting for these kids coming up. Let me take actually just a quick piss break, and we'll then continue in on the last week's championship games. I think we'll head off with that. So I'll
Yeah,
be
sounds good.
right back. Just
Probably
a
do
minute
the
here.
same.
All right, all right. Hey, just a reminder, folks, we are doing this show, if you're watching on YouTube, we do this show live every Friday. Usually start around 3 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/tapatioj. That's Tapatioj, Tapatioj. Catch me on there, catch us on there for the live show. And then be sure to check us out on our YouTube channel as well if you want to check the podcast afterward. But yeah, let's jump right into it, I suppose, as we're both back here. What a championship game week. Let's kick off with the first one of the day. Quite a game there, as we had Cincinnati going in to Kansas City, and nice, crazy, just a hell of a comeback by the Bengals squad there. When it was looking like they were pretty dead in the water early on, a lot of people had written them off early in this game. The Bengals going on to take this win against the Chiefs is they had done it less than a month earlier. They had gotten a 3-point win against the Chiefs team in a few weeks prior, but this one was quite a stunner, just given how it started out, and it looked like really quite a surprising shift in how Kansas City looked, really. I think all the credit, obviously, to Cincinnati. Kansas City really kind of reverted back to some of their early season form, which is not good, and in the second half of this game. And I think the writing was on the wall for them right there as it wound down.
Yeah, I feel like I've been as guilty about this as anybody else, but at some point we're gonna have to start giving some respect to this Cincinnati defense too. They got hit hard early by the Chiefs. It looked like they were gonna get ripped apart, and then they kind of just settled into the game. And Mahomes looked flustered pretty much from the end of the first half onward.
Yeah,
he never really looked like he got comfortable again. Trey Hendrickson, who by the way was dead in the water last year in again Detroit, surprisingly enough.
Yeah.
He's a beast on that line for them. Jesse Bates is the most underrated player at his position, anyways, in the NFL. The highest Pro Football Focus metric this year, Jesse Bates had. Not a Pro Bowler. Just throwing that one out there. You look at guys like Von Bell and BJ Hill. There's so much talent on that defense. And yeah, they're not the best defense in the world. And they're certainly built from the scraps of other teams. Guys like Eli Apple, who was a bust a couple years ago, right? Like, he was just a draft bust. And now they've kind of built a pretty strong defense around it. It's not the best defense in the world, but when push came to shove, when this Bengals team needed that defense to step up, it stepped up big time.
Yeah, I mean, it really started. I think it was that right at the end of the second quarter, you got you got a game as you're going right toward the end of that first half there, end of the second quarter. Chiefs are able to score a touchdown. They put this game into a 21-3 situation. It's looking bad. The only good drive Bengals had to that point resulted in a field goal, and this is like, is this the same game as they had against the Titans, where it's like that got them enough, but you can't expect that against the Chiefs, right? It was just like the Chiefs are just they're just too much on offense, and Joe Burrow leads these guys down on not a favorable situation, but a beautiful, nice little play, and that you got Burrow being able to get them a touchdown with a little over a minute to go. You make that game an 11-point game, but then Chiefs march it right back, and it's like, Jesus, this defense cannot stop them. And then they just bend, don't break. They get them right there at the end, and I believe it's Eli Apple that's able to get a tackle to prevent them from getting that touchdown on fourth. end of the half, whatever. Um, Huge. I mean, there's a little bit of an argument that it's like, you could have just taken the points there. You could have just got out 14. You would have been fine, I think, as far as the Chiefs. But they really want to put the nail in the coffin. But when you're really going for that and you whiff, you can't help it. You're giving momentum to the other side at that point. And the Bengals had to be fired up going into that half after making that stop right there and keeping themselves into an 11-point game, a two-possession game still. And again, not really getting it done early on in that third quarter. Eventually, you get yourself a field goal, and then before you know it, bang, bang, a couple plays, turnover, and bam, you tied this game up before the fourth quarter even hits. Like, just insane as far as the momentum swing that you had right there at the end of the first half and beginning of the second half there.
We'll quickly apologize to the Detroit Lions. I know you guys get enough shit for things you deserve. Trey Hendrickson was floundering in New Orleans.
New Orleans, yeah, Well, were you thinking T.J. Hawkinson? Because that's
I might have had T.J.
It's a close last name because I was like, oh, okay, like I didn't.
It was New Orleans.
Right.
I do apologize to the Detroit fans. You have more than enough for me to shit on without me adding more to that. The Chiefs, man, this season, inconsistency just kind of killed them, eh? They just struggled to put together a string of games where they could play well.
They had a string of games where they were playing. I mean, they were getting wins. They, whether they were playing well on all sides of the ball, that might be another thing. But they had a big string of wins there.
They had a big string of wins, but again, kind of struggling to put together like really consistent full 60 minutes. We played well throughout this whole game. They were able to sneak some wins out when they played poorly, but in the playoffs, that generally doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right? You look at the Broncos game, they even won at the end of the season. It wasn't pretty, right? The Cowboys 19-9 game, I don't think anybody thinks back to that one and goes, wow, Chiefs masterpiece win there. Or the Packers game against Jordan Love, right? I think everybody kind of agrees if it was anybody other than Jordan Love, they probably don't win that game. Right? So they were winning games through nefarious means, let's say. Not nefarious in the sense of evil, but kind of just getting away with games they probably shouldn't have gotten away with. And they got out to an early lead here, and then, like I said, it felt like Mahomes buckled a little bit under the pressure he got put under, which is very weird to see. He's been a clutch performer his whole career, but it wasn't it. Speaking of clutch performers, man, Evan McPherson. I will pump up this guy's tires all day, man. What a stud.
Yeah.
This guy is a rookie, drafted in the 5th round out of Florida. And even when they drafted him, even the Bengals fans were like, you're drafting a kicker. Pick up one as an undrafted free agent. You don't need to draft kickers. Bro, drafting kickers. It sometimes flops on you, but when it pays off big. If there's a draftable kicker out there, usually because they're pretty damn good. And Evan McPherson is pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen any of his interviews, that sort of thing, you gotta love his attitude. He just pretty. He seems pretty relaxed, and kickers are often kind of thought of as potentially, there's football players and then there's kickers and punters.
There's kickers, yeah.
He seems like a little bit more a part of the team in that regard. Obviously, the results speak for themselves. Like
ice water in his veins.
Yeah,
and just doesn't feel anything.
I think even when you're talking about, he's been actually excellent from 50 plus. The weird range where he has missed some this season has been between 40 and 50. But yeah, been fantastic from 50 beyond. And you know what I feel, the one thing as far as you talk about the consistency of the Chiefs, I think the one thing that they had that was very surprising as this season developed, because it didn't look like it was going to happen for them early, it was their offensive line. this offensive line was one of the worst or the worst in the league at one point, along with their defense. So they were kind of on two sides of it. They were looking really bad early this season. Even had won some games despite that, but it's like they were looking like this team isn't built right, or Mahomes literally just can't operate under those conditions. He's getting rushed, and that offense, that team, just looks very different when you're not giving him the opportunity with the ball there. And it seemed like by the time you got to about the midway point through the season into the end, this offensive line had it figured out. It's like, shit, they got it dialed in. And there's one thing I had said as we were going into this game. Big factor is going to be the Cincinnati pass rush. And if they're able to expose this Kansas City Chiefs offensive line and bring them back a little bit to that early season form, that's going to be the way they could win this game. And it wasn't looking like they were going to be able to do that the first half. I don't know what adjustments they made at defense as far as it going into the second half. Obviously, it kind of started, I would say it started right there at the end of the first half, but not even. I mean, Chiefs really walked that ball down almost all the way. They got a little fortunate as far as they just didn't quite break it to get into the touchdown. And an excellent tackle by Eli Apple on that last play of the half. But yeah, you're talking second half, they got at Mahomes for rushing. They got at him continuously. And yeah, you're talking about a Chiefs team that in that second half, the only points they scored were with 3 seconds left on a field goal. Very impressive by that Cincinnati Bengals defense. And really, I think that pass rush is really the core of how they really flipped this game. And then obviously the being able to get that pick 3 plays into overtime there. Kind of flipping those over, everybody was talking about those overtime rules and how it kind of screws the guy that doesn't win, and Chiefs win it. And then, hey, but if you turn that ball over, and a little loose there from Patty Mahomes tossing it up, and bam, bam. And then, of course, hey, we could kick a field goal to win this game. Don't mind if I do, says the Bengals. Evan McPherson, yeah. Ice water, 31-yarder too, like easy money. They still were driving that ball down them. They could have really drove that in for a touchdown if they wanted to. I feel Bengals just had everything going for them, but yeah, easy dub, very nice.
Like, here's the thing though, you have Evan McPherson back there. You wouldn't risk anything, right? I trust at this point in the season, if I'm the Bengals, I trust Evan McPherson so completely to kick that field goal. I'm not going to throw anything up. I'm not going to risk anything. Right? We're just going to, we're a 31-yarder chip shot for the guy. Where do you want it? In the middle? Sweet. We'll run the ball on first down, see if we break anything. No? Okay. Up in the middle. Go ahead, Evan. Win us the game. He's that automatic at this point.
And then
I think it's worth noting, you talked about it, and I love this stat. The Cincinnati Bengals blitzed Patrick Mahomes in that game a grand total of 4 times. They did not send extra rushers to him at all to get those 4 sacks.
Yeah.
They were doing it with good coverage downfield and a great front 4 pass rush. And that's not easy to do. Like, the Chiefs got 1 sack, sending 11 blitzes, right? Like, the numbers, like, if you look at the hurries and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, well, they were both hurried the same amount of time. Burrow was hit more in the game. It's like, yeah, but Kansas City was sending constant blitzes to try to get there. Cincinnati didn't have to do that. They got there just by playing standard defense. Straight up 4-man rush. You can't stop it.
Yeah. Very impressive. And just such a turnaround. They just weren't able to do that first half, and I don't know what stunts and then whatever, maybe just alignments and just some damn good coverage too. I mean, if you're covering up the quick strike, and that's how that play is designed, and you have to start looking other places. Usually those are quick step drops, and if you're able to shrug, one or two guys on your line's able to shrug a tackle, you're getting those sacks there. You're getting that pressure there immediately. I think Cincinnati really took advantage of what Kansas City wanted to do on offense. I think two players, or actually three players, I wanted to point out. Decent game from Joe Mixon. I thought rushing wise, I was hoping he'd get somewhere like 100 yards. He got close to 88. Did have along a 23 to kind of really break that out. But yeah, over 20 carries for Joey Mix. So good to see that. T. Higgins, who I've really liked for the Bengals there, leading their side, 6 catches on 103 yards there, was targeted quite a bit. And then, yeah, of course, Jamar got his tutty. That was a nice. That was the start. I would say even that's the start of the momentum shift for the Bengals. Finally getting a touchdown on the board there with Jamar Chase in the first half. Started to bring the opportunity to even come back in this game to light. And then one other guy that I want to point out, because it's a little bit of a selfish, because in the next game we'll talk about, unfortunately, my Niners no longer in it. Trent Taylor, punt returner for the Cincinnati Bengals. So good to see Trent Taylor, longtime Niner, kind of one of our good slot guys, and play a little special teams, obviously, for us. Unfortunately, wasn't able to retain. He wasn't able to be retained by the team. So good to see Trent Taylor still doing work out there and getting the opportunity at the Super Bowl with the Bengals.
Yeah. That receiving core that the Bengals have is very underrated, man.
Oh,
I know a lot of
I don't
people
know
going
anymore, dude. I don't know anymore. They got to see it. Yeah, but I agree. I agree.
No, you can't anymore. But like, I think even coming into the Super Bowl game, a lot of people are looking at that receiving core of the Rams, and yeah, it's good. But hold up, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, C.J. Uzomah, they're loaded with receiving options. Not to mention Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine, both proving to be great options out of the backfield.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this team's got options out the wazoo when it comes to passing the ball. And, I mean, it doesn't have to be Jamar Chase, right? He is the number one.
Yeah.
For a good reason. He is very good. But T. Higgins is the one who shows up for 103 in this game. Samaje Perine out of the backfield with a big touchdown reception in his own right. Right? Like, they have so many options to get the ball out to. It's kind of incredible.
Although I did hate to see that, and I don't know what his medical status is right now, but Uzomah going down early in that game, it did not look good. And yeah, I couldn't imagine. And that's a shame, because I do like him at that tight end position. I think he is a weapon. But they will. I can't imagine they're going to have him.
Brain. There was nothing in there terribly banged up, but it sounds like it's swollen pretty bad right now.
Yeah,
hopefully another week of rest. Like, he hasn't practiced yet since that game.
Yeah.
Hopefully with another week of rest, they can get that swelling down. The other one that's a little bit concerning is Trey Hendrickson still hasn't participated, but that sounds like he's sick. So if that's the case, he'll probably be okay. I'm with you. I hope they get Uzomah out there because, again, a tight end who just, one of those tight ends, not of the same level as the elite tight ends who do everything, of the Kelseys and the Kittles and stuff like that, but is one of those tight ends who, if you need to throw him the ball, safe hands, he's going to catch him, he's going to do something with it. If you need him to block, dude's an absolute tank, he's going to get out in front and block for you, right? Just one of those guys who, as a tight end, can do everything and definitely deserves to be in that situation. I thought Drew Sample came in as a blocking tight end after that and played really well. That dude was opening up some holes for Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, again, just speaking to the depth that they have at those skill positions. And one person who's been slagged a lot, who I think deserves a lot of credit for this Bengals game. You go into the half down 21-3, and you come out and play a second half like that. Zach Taylor needs to get more love on his name. There's been a lot of people I've heard who have said that the Bengals are here in spite of Zach Taylor. I don't think that's the case.
Oh, I
I
mean, yeah,
I don't think he calls a bad game at all, right? Like there's not a lot of Bengals calls that I see where I go, I don't love that one. I think you should have done something else. I think he calls a fine enough game, and this team clearly fucking plays for that guy. Because
yeah,
you go into the locker room down 21-3, and you come out and play a second half like that, you're playing for that guy. He said something in that locker room that got you playing for him,
yeah.
right?
I
So
honestly, I've had him as a coach of the year candidate myself for the
sorry,
season.
they were down 21-3. They went into the locker room down 21-10.
Yes.
But you're playing for that dude,
Yeah.
no doubt.
Um, yeah, and I think considering what was expected of this team where they were
Yeah,
slotted, I mean you have to think something's going right.
yeah.
I don't think that's just some players and granted guys like Jamar Chase being a nice offensive spark for this squad, but I think there's quite a few things at play, and right now exactly he's got the boys playing for him. So
Yeah.
um,
And we haven't talked about him yet, but Joe Burrow's an absolute stud. The dude just knows how to win games.
yeah, I mean this will be exciting. This will be exciting for him. Who doesn't look at Joe Burrow right now and really unless you're a diehard Rams fan, you got to be kind of
Yeah.
rooting for the guy. He's been
I do think there's a story to root for on the Rams too, but
well,
we'll
of
talk
course.
about that in a bit.
But yeah, let's go right into that one. Second game, NFC Championship game. The Niners going into LA and unfortunately just kind of unraveling and just knocking it done there, and losing by a field goal to the Rams, 20-17, to the what was essentially a home game for the Niners on the road in South Levi's there. Just a bit of a heartbreaker, in some regards. A hell of a run for a team that had to fight their ass off to even make it into the playoffs in the Niners. But when the opportunity was there to really kind of seal this game up in a couple different ways, just didn't find a way to do it. Offensively, defensively, it just this has been a team of two halves throughout the year. We've brought that up before. Just not quite two halves in this one because the Kittle touchdown was late in the third, but definitely a different team throughout the pretty much that fourth quarter there, and yeah, just slipped it away.
Really quickly, before we get to anything else, I
Sure.
think we need to address a lot of people blaming this loss squarely on Jaqueski Tart.
No, yeah, and
No,
no,
there was so much more that caused this loss
yeah,
than just Jaqueski Tart dropping an interception. Yes, it was a gimme. Yeah, it was a
he
bad drop.
he would say the same exact thing.
And
Yeah,
he came
gimme
out right away and
drop.
said,
Yeah,
"Listen, no excuses. I got to make that play." And he's right.
yeah,
But that play leads to an incomplete pass and third down for the Rams that they later convert
yes,
in a play that had nothing to do with Jaqueski Tart,
sure, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So, I mean, there's a million ways to look at this. Jaqueski Tart definitely deserves his portion of the blame, as do a lot of players in and around what happened
yeah,
at the end of that game. But I don't think you can squarely say Jaqueski Tart lost the San Francisco 49ers the game.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, as it's good that we're not doing the show like the day after. This isn't a Monday show. It's good that this is a Friday show because
Yeah,
I have a little bit, you get a little bit better perspective. When you just
yeah,
come off the loss there, you're just kind of just frustrated about it. And maybe not as frustrated. Maybe not as frustrated as Super Bowl a couple years ago against the Chiefs. I think the same thing, though. People often will look at that game against the Chiefs, and what's the one play they point out? Overthrow. Jimmy Garoppolo overthrow down the middle of the field. uh, over the head of Emmanuel Sanders. Sucks. Remember that play? You run that play back, just how everything lined up, ball up, just not there. But it's so many other things as far as how the defense was performing, a pass rush that was dominating and got really excited and really hyped off their play. As soon as they celebrated in the end zone, they immediately fell off. There was a mentality thing I think that the defense felt to where they didn't play well. With this game, I think there's a few things. I think you're talking about I think the defense actually, for the most part, played well. This has happened before to them. They've had games like this before. If you just look at first and second down, this defense is shutting them out. Dominant. There were a lot of third and longs in this game for the Rams. And they converted damn near every single fucking one of them. This Rams team only punted once this game. They converted so many goddamn third downs that you would not expect them to be able to convert with that kind of frequency. Every now and then you'll give up a third and long, like a third and 8. This Rams team converted multiple third and 8 pluses, third and 10s, third and 13s and shit. It was just they played this great defense and then they just softened up enough, and Matt Stafford was able to get his feet under him, find enough of a pocket, and be able to, matriculate the ball down with these third downs. So that's kind of crushing. You're just out there for that many more downs. It's not like, there's one thing to be said about, when a team just marches down and every pass down there is a first down. But that's a quick drive at least, right? For a defense, if you're taking them to third down every time and then you're giving up first downs each time, that's just 2 more plays you added into that situation. And you just keep adding that up, and it just kind of wore the guys down. And on the flip side, the offense, you could look at Jimmy. He obviously was making some bad decisions. There were some open guys that he was missing. You have a running game that was absolutely flat. I mean, I understand you have Aaron Donald, but that's why you work the outside run game, and that didn't seem to get there, which is something that Shanahan's done well of starting to work those sweeps and, those little, touch passes and that sort of thing, getting guys in space, getting guys like Debo in space. And then that's the other point. After the third quarter, after that Kittle touchdown, you're talking about Debo didn't touch the ball after there were 12 minutes left in the fourth. He got a first down on a nice little, what was originally like a 5-6 yard route, works his ass down, gets 11 yards, gets a first down for him. He doesn't see the ball again the entire rest of the game. For your best offensive player, kind of inexcusable, especially when you've been doing that all season. When you say he's getting doubled in pass, they still work him in sweeps, whatever, put him in the backfield. There's so many things that they've been able to do, and for some reason, this team, Shanahan, whatever, they just let off the gas too much again, and the Rams have enough firepower across the board to be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and especially when you look on the other side, and you see the Rams are doing everything possible to get the ball in the Cooper Kupp's hands on as many plays. Like, they're double teaming Cooper Kupp. It doesn't matter. They're still throwing the ball to him, right? When you have a guy who's that talented, and I do equate Deebo Samuel on a similar, if not the same talent level as Cooper Kupp. When you have a guy who's that talented, you throw the ball in his area. Yeah. Guys like that have a tendency to come down with it more often than not.
I mean, you see the Rams, what do you think they're going to go to? They're going to go to Cooper Kupp. They're going to go to OBJ.
Yeah.
And you would think that would be something the Niners would take over, and even if they do kind of scheme, they find a way to get those guys the ball no matter what, it seems like.
20 catches between those two.
Right. And you just don't see that kind of that drive for him. And then, I don't know, like guys like Juwan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk. Yeah, it just you have other guys you could lean on as well if you really want to go that way and
Obviously, George Kittle.
have Debo in the passing game. But yeah, and then the other thing, one other thing I would say as far as what was clear as this game got into that fourth quarter, and even before that when the Niners drives were stalling out, and they could have pulled away in this game even more than 17-7. Uh, my and it's a shame because I kind of like him in some regards, but uh, our right tackle Tom Compton was getting his ass whooped all night. He could not protect the right side right there. It wasn't Jimmy's blind side, and Trent Williams was coming off injury, and he wasn't doing as great either. But Compton was getting the break speed off him, and Jimmy was not feeling great. And then the last play of the game, it seemed like half the team wasn't even ready for the snap. Everybody was slow off the line. They come right up the middle. Jimmy flings the ball at Jermichael Hasty, and that's all she wrote, right? So, very disappointing, kind of deflating end. But
Yeah.
the Rams had all that momentum going, and they were taking advantage. They just kind of picked it apart.
Yeah, I think with the Rams, something that's often overlooked is everybody looks at Aaron Donald and goes, "Oh, they got Aaron Donald." And yeah, he is unbelievably good. This is a team that's got Ashawn Robinson, Greg Gaines. That whole defensive line is no joke. And
Oh yeah, yeah.
if somebody's off, uh, whoever's on that side is going to punish you. If you're too focused on Aaron Donald, Ashawn Robinson, Greg Gaines, they're going to cause issues for you,
Yeah.
right? And that's the way the Rams defensive line works. Is yeah, they got the name and Aaron Donald, and that's where everybody looks at. But boy, Ashawn Robinson was really causing Compton some issues in that game.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, if we can touch on the Rams really quick, Cooper Cup is ridiculous.
Right.
Absolute freak. I am very happy for Matthew Stafford. I was on the 49ers bandwagon, obviously. I was cheering for the Niners. I wanted to get you that goddamn Super Bowl. Uh, but Matthew Stafford has had a career full of shit thrown at him in Detroit and taken a lot of blame for a situation that I don't think he should have taken as much blame for as he did. And kind of throws some more damning evidence the way of the Detroit Lions. Goes to a team where he's actually got receivers, he's actually got an offensive line that can protect them. They're going to a Super Bowl, right? Matt Stafford had gained a lot of labels from being the Detroit Lions quarterback. I'm happy to see him shedding some of those now and people recognizing, hey, there was more problems with the Detroit Lions than Matthew Stafford.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think you ever. It would be hard for me to ever look at the team and be like Matthew Stafford was the problem. I think, yeah, the idea was like, oh yeah, he's serviceable enough and he can put up some numbers. Um,
Never going to win you a playoff
but
game.
yeah,
He's not the guy
exactly.
who
Like
can
yeah,
lead you the whole way there.
he's a Kirk Cousins. He's
Yeah, he's Kirk Cousins.
yeah.
What we are learning is Matthew Stafford is not Kirk Cousins.
Ryan Tannehill, something like that. But yeah, exactly. No, Stafford. Yeah, I mean, for a game that I think, I mean, he was looking rough out at certain points of this game. Came back nicely, and although just the one touchdown there in the fourth quarter, even on that comeback, they ended up having to go for field goals the other two. But I think it's kind of cool. As much as LA has kind of gone out, and how we see this with their baseball teams too.
Oh yeah,
they love to spend. They love to put out as good of a team as they can, financially. Anyways, it's panned out for them here. I think obviously you look at this game and against the Bengals coming up, and obviously we'll hit upon this next week in our Super Bowl preview. But you gotta like that at least on both sides of the ball, both teams, anyways. You got some feel good stories,
yeah.
The Bengals
Eric
franchise.
Eric Weddle, by the way.
Yeah,
Another one
that's
that we'll
that's
throw out
that's
there.
pretty cool. Yeah, exactly. To be able to
Guy who
step
is
in off.
literally retired,
Sure. Yeah. True.
right?
Um,
Has never gotten to play in the big one.
even stuff like the OBJ story is kind
Yeah,
of interesting because it's like the the career that it seemed to nosedive after the Giants going to the Browns and just not producing out there, and people are wondering what the hell happened to him. And it's like, hey, yeah, that might have been the
might have been a
Browns.
little bit of a Browns
That might
thing
have been
more
the
than it was
Browns. That might have been on
Odell
them.
Beckham thing.
So,
Uh,
no, go for
it
it.
sounds like Jimmy Garoppolo has played his last game in San Francisco by all
Yeah.
intents and purposes.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a situation out there where Jimmy G to really flourish? Like, what would be the ideal team you think Jimmy G could go to and really flourish as a quarterback?
I,
No, not.
yeah, I mean, depends on what
And when I say flourish, by the way, I don't
win
mean like
games.
become the top. I mean do what he's been doing in San Francisco,
Right.
right? Put a team in a situation to win games. And maybe make another run at a Super Bowl. Maybe have one last shot at making that run to the big game. He's been to one before.
Early indications, best one I could see right now, given the scenarios. Some of these teams you can't really even
Yeah.
decide, like, the Green Bays and what the hell is going to happen
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Rodgers in that situation. Right now, as I'm seeing it, I'm going to say I personally think the Pittsburgh Steelers would be a great landing spot for him. Tomlin, that team has a run game. You could go behind Najee. You could get a guy like Jimmy, and you got a veteran presence that you could at least kind of rely on to a degree. You don't have to go with a young guy now. You could kind of keep it going. He could play well. Jimmy could play well enough to keep that going. And you could then turn your focus to what you need to, which is your offensive line. Desperately, you need to focus on that. So it would be like you're able to set aside that piece, and you could focus on that, whether through the draft, and you get someone for a nice rookie contract that you could hopefully lean on to actually be able to produce for you. Given their positioning isn't going to be that great, right? They were a playoff team this year, so they are going to be drafting in the higher teens to late 20s, right? Actually, no, not late 20s. I mean early 20s. Yeah, they're drafting in their late 20s then, because they were, even though they were the seventh seed in their division or their conference, still kind of bumps them up in regards to that. So I could see that. People are talking about him potentially going places to be a backup.
Steelers draft 20th, by the way.
20th. Yeah. So that would be interesting. What because the Niners are looking for a trade partner in this.
He
And
won't go somewhere where he's a backup. I'll throw that out there right
yeah,
now because somebody's gonna pay a first rounder for him, and I think that's where San Francisco jumps. My
exactly.
guess, the Washington Commanders.
Hmm.
I think Jimmy Garoppolo fits perfectly for the commies.
Okay.
I think again Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick. You got a nice running back duo there. There is some talent at wide receiver that you can work with. Obviously, you have Scary Terry, right? And some guys around there you can work with. Uh, their biggest flaw this year was Taylor Heineke was inconsistent. Jimmy Garoppolo might not be an elite quarterback, but he's going to give you roughly the same thing every time out. You're not getting wild variations in Garoppolo's play. I think the Commanders might be the place where he fits best. Uh Perfect scenario for him, the Tennessee Titans obviously. They play a very similar style to the 49ers. He gets Derrick Henry behind him and he gets AJ Brown, right? Like I think that's perfect scenario, but I don't think that one's going to happen because I don't know how the
Yeah.
Titans could make it work.
Yeah. I don't know how the Titans are able to move on from Tannehill this
Yeah.
offseason. So
That's the perfect scenario, but I don't think it's a realistic one. I think the Commanders is a realistic one. Uh, I think they'd be willing to pay the price of bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think they're a team that would benefit from Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's my pick. But I do love the Steelers pick, by the way. They were one of the teams I had on that list. I thought off the top of my head, when I was trying to come up with three teams, I thought Commanders, I thought Steelers, and then as kind of an outside one, I thought of the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, you know what's funny? So relating to that, and this will be the last thing before we move on here. The one scenario I had heard that was fucking crazy to me. I heard someone suggest the Raiders, but know that not to replace Derek Carr, more that Carr would be gotten rid of. They would promote Mariota to starter, and Jimmy Garoppolo would be the backup to Marcus Mariota in Las Vegas. I'm like,
That
that's a crazy scenario. I don't think that's going to be
I
happening.
don't think
But
that would happen. If he goes to
I did
Vegas, he's
see
going
that.
to be the starter. Because again, I
Yeah.
do think somebody's going to pay the starter rate for Jimmy Garoppolo. Because somebody's
Eh.
going to look at him and go, that kind of consistency with the running game we have, we could be the next Tennessee Titans. Right? We run the ball heavy. Garoppolo's going to be a consistent quarterback for us. He's not going to cost us games. And we're going to push through with
How
running game
about
defense.
I? I don't know contractually how well that would work out, but what about the Colts?
Oh boy, Carson
I
is
don't think they want to go another year with Wentz. It doesn't sound like they want to.
I, the thing is they'd have to find a way to get rid of Wentz, right?
Yes.
And I don't know what Carson's contract looks like, but I can't imagine that cap works out particularly nice if they cut him.
Maybe they just keep Wentz. They fucking sign Jimmy too, and they fucking Wentz is a backup again.
Um, I had heard so craziest rumor I heard of the week. I had heard rumors around Carson Wentz and the Buccaneers that the Buccaneers were interested in Carson Wentz.
Hmm.
Now, I can't imagine anybody being interested in Carson Wentz right now, but apparently the Buccaneers are. Um, the Colts would make a you get
Ooh.
Jonathan Taylor, right? Again, you want to put Garoppolo into a similar situation as the 49ers, where your job is to be a consistent quarterback, not to be a gunslinger, not to go out there and throw for 400 yards. Be a consistent quarterback. Put us in a chance to win by just not making mistakes, right? That's something Jimmy Garoppolo does really well. So the Colts make a lot of sense, right?
Ooh.
Jonathan Taylor's going to be running for 100, yards a game.
Ooh. Hot
Ooh.
off the presses. Sorry, I just saw this right now on the wire. Very interesting because we were just talking about the Niners, and might as well keep going. Anthony Lynn has been hired as assistant head coach for the Niners. Uh, formerly of, I believe, the Bills.
Yeah,
Um,
he was the Chargers head coach for a bit, right?
yeah, Chargers as well. Um, indicating that Mike McDaniel might become the Dolphins' new head coach, which would be pretty crazy.
Oh boy.
Early indications on that as
What are
protection
you
because there's no other reason to bring in Anthony Lynn when you have Mike McDaniel.
what are your thoughts on Mike McDaniel as a head coach?
I mean, that you're literally of the remaining teams to have a head coach, to need a head coach. You got to think the Dolphins are a pretty good fit, or in the best position, anyways. Maybe not exactly um, the offense that you were operating previously with the Niners, but I don't know. With some pieces, maybe you could get that going. Do you want to go with a guy like Gaskin, and that backfield? What can you add to it? What can you help out? And with a guy like Tua, um, something to build upon there, I suppose, on the
So
offensive
again,
side.
my thought here, similar to Brian Dabble, is this a fit for McDaniel? He was the running game coordinator for a few years before becoming the offensive coordinator, right?
Right,
This is a guy who loves running backs, lives and dies on running backs.
right.
This is not a solid running back class, right? Like it's not like there's a running back in here that you could grab and really grab a hold. Maybe Kenneth Walker, and it's not like the Dolphins already have a running back room that makes you salivate.
Mhm.
So it feels like a bit of a weird fit to me, but he's a guy who I think at least deserves a shot. He's done a lot of great things in San Francisco with that running game, right? Like we talked about it. His job was you do the running game stuff for a while, and that running game caught fire, and it didn't matter who was back there, right? they've gone through so many running backs over the course of his time that have, through injury, through whatever the means are, losing them in free agency, blah, 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 blah. And they all seem to be successful. Could he maybe do that with Miles Gaskin? Perhaps. I've always liked Miles Gaskin. I've always thought there was a little something there with Miles Gaskin. He's never had a true breakout season, but maybe that is the kind of guy you need. It'll be interesting to see. My first thought was it's not quite the perfect fit, but yeah, as your first job, you're not always going to get the perfect fit, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I think of the remaining teams, this is pretty good for him.
It's
I
the
mean,
it's the best team left that you could go to,
you're
right?
going
As
to
far
you're going
as
to Cap Hill in with the Saints or the Houston fucking Texans. So
yeah, you
good
get to
luck.
go to Miami. That was a winning team the last 2 seasons
I'm a
with a
little
young.
surprised he decided to move this season, though. I'm a little surprised. I thought he was going to pull a D'Amico Ryans and stay around, but who knows what how everything worked out? Because yeah, this is kind of been it was almost this has been preempted. That's not guaranteed by any means.
Yeah,
The only guaranteed thing is Anthony Lynn's been brought in for the
Anthony Lynn's
Niners,
coming in.
and I love it. I love it. As far
I'm a
as
big Anthony Lynn
another,
guy.
you're talking about another
Yeah,
former player coming in, running game, base guy was a running back.
yeah.
I'm really hoping that this clicks. I'm excited. I'm excited for it. I think this has some real potential, and yeah, obviously a guy that I think. I mean, let's see. I mean, Shanahan would have never worked with him before. I don't think.
No, it doesn't look like it. I
Yeah, they
can't
would have
see if
never
they would
crossed
have crossed.
paths, whether it was the coaching. I mean, obviously not as far as playing is concerned before Shanahan's time really doing that. Um, but yeah, I mean, uh, guy who's been moving around, and oddly enough, yeah, having been a head coach prior, that's going to be kind of interesting in regard. But
Not a bad head coach,
no,
right? Like he
no,
just never really got the Chargers over the hump was the problem, but got them to a playoff, got them to a divisional game against the Patriots, obviously. And a divisional game they were winning against the Patriots, by the way, until Tom Brady did Tom Brady things.
yeah.
But 9-7, 12-4, had the down year when Philip Rivers got hurt. Then they draft Herbert and they go 7-9, right? It's not like he was ever bad with the Chargers. He just never was able to get them across the finish line. This isn't a guy who failed as a head coach. This is a guy who was a okay head coach who probably is looking for another place to get his name back out there to maybe get another shot. San Francisco seems to be the perfect fit for that. You're right. This is a running back who comes in to be the offensive coordinator of this team. He's gonna love it, man. I get to hand the ball to Debo Samuel and Eli Mitchell and JaMychal Hasty, and they'll have Raheem Mostert back, and oh my lord,
You think they're going to keep Raheem Mostert? That's
I
kind of
do.
been a little bit of a talk as
I
far
do think
as
they'll keep Raheem Mostert because I don't think he's going to cost them that much because of injury issues and all that
he's
jazz.
potentially trying to get some money.
I
But
don't think he
whether you
will.
will be able to is another question.
Like
Exactly.
that's the thing. I think Mostert is going to test the market, dip his foot in it. I don't think anybody's going to pay him the amount he wants, and I think he's ultimately going to end up deciding that the best place for him right now, San Francisco. I get to be the feature back in a system that loves running backs, right?
Yeah.
At worst, Raheem Mostert will be 1B with Mitchell, right? Like at worst.
Which is crazy
Um,
because, you're talking about a guy, and obviously easier said than done when he hasn't been healthy. But when healthy, I would
Unbelievable.
argue, I would argue top five. Probably number five running back. When you're
Yeah,
talking about
yeah, I think
your
that's fair.
your Henry, Taylor,
Yep,
Mixon,
yep.
and maybe a Chubb or
I had Nick Chubb, and I actually flipped Mixon and Chubb, and you've got my list down to a T. And then I think you could probably fit Raheem Mostert in there.
exactly. So it's when it's going, and I've brought this up before. This is a guy. Literally, we did not have the Niners did not have the entire season. Your
Nope.
number one running back did not play. They had to go by really getting a guy like Eli Mitchell, and it speaks to Mitchell that I think you have to consider him kind of the one A right now for that team. Even a guy over a guy like Mostert, who has the potential to be a top five running back in the league. It's
I
it's pretty
think being a
impressive.
1B though would be a great thing for Raheem Mostert.
I think it's a great change of pace. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it means that that elusiveness and that ridiculous speed he's got comes in as kind of not a secret weapon because everybody kind of knows about it, but it comes in a time where maybe the game slowed down a little bit, especially, right? You know, you're having a bit of a long drive, defense is getting tired. You can bring in Raheem Mostert and just run like some kind of a sweep with Raheem Mostert where you get that pace, that elusiveness on the outside. A tired defense is not going to be able to handle that.
And at this point, you're looking at into the future. This is going to be a Trey Lance run offense. This is going to be very interesting as far as what
Next year,
packages. Yeah,
you think Trey Lance is the quarterback next year?
I think he is. I think he
I
is.
have a sneaking suspicion a certain quarterback who had a fun time at the skills competition yesterday might be your quarterback.
I mean that would be spicy. I mean that would be weird
I
too.
got a I got a very sneaky suspicion Russell Wilson finds his way a little bit south of where he's used to, but in the same division.
that's a very interesting call. I honestly I've never even thought about that, let alone heard it.
Ross
Um,
is a West Coast guy,
right.
and more importantly, he's a very flashy guy. California is a place for flashy people. He gets to go to a place where they're a winning team already,
Yep.
right? He gets to go under Kyle Shanahan, who's a great offensive mind. Anthony Lynn, who knows going to have those running backs behind him going. He gets to go down there and go, listen, you get to be Russell Wilson, but we got like a whole complement of running backs behind you to make everybody worry about you. That thing that you never had in Seattle,
Yeah.
we got that in spades.
It
Offensive line, don't worry about that. We got Trent Williams, one of the best tackles in the game, but
yeah,
you
it'll
you want
be
options to throw to? Ayuk, Jennings, Debo.
well, yeah. So that it's kind of speaking almost to the cap situation that the Niners are in, because right now it's being thought you're getting a trade for Garoppolo, D Ford potentially being on the chopping block for the Niners, and actually being cut because he has a pretty significant cap number right now. And then on priority, re-signing for Debo and Bosa
Yeah,
is potentially a priority for the team on this offseason. When you look at it as far as like what those guys are probably going to be making, they might be resetting the market for those positions as far as making top dollar. Bosa,
Debo for sure.
you could argue
Bo
Bosa as well, being pretty close to that as far as
Bosa will be
top
close.
ends.
Yeah.
Um,
Debo for sure resets the market, right? Because it's not like Cooper Cup's a free agent or anything like that. And that's the only kind of receiver that you can put in that scenario where they would
yeah,
truly reset the market. I think Debo for sure resets the wide receiver market. We're going to see the largest contract in history for a receiver probably for Debo.
yeah. So then, if you take a look at the numbers, you're looking at like 20 million ish that the Niners would have to play with this offseason.
Think anybody's paying Russ more than 20?
Not more than 20, but you talk about you want to kind of fill this in a few ways. It's not like you're going to have everybody coming back either from this team.
No, but
A lot of guys on 1 year deals that if you want to bring them back, that's going to cut into that 20, right?
I honestly think the Niners cap situation by the end of this looks more like 30 million. I think there's a couple more ways that they can move some things around to get some cap space for them. Um, you're right. There's a lot of guys on 1 year contracts that you. The question always in football, more so than any other sport, is can I replace this guy in the draft?
Yeah.
Right? For cheaper.
And
Right?
we don't draft till the second.
No, but this draft in particular is very interesting for that because you're going to get a lot of premium positions going later than usual because the first round of this draft full of edge,
Yeah.
full of O-line,
And Jimmy potentially gets us there. Early second rounder potentially gets us there as well.
potentially gets you into a first rounder if the right team comes knocking, right?
So we'll see.
So
We'll see.
there's going to be some options there for sure. I think the fit for Russell Wilson in San Francisco is just too perfect, and I don't think they think Trey Lance is ready. And from what I've seen out of Trey Lance this year, I don't think Trey Lance is ready. I think he's still a year or two out. And Russell
He
Wilson's a good bridge to that.
what I will say is that when he had to come in and he had to come in for the injured Jimmy in the Seattle game earlier in the season, yeah, that offense looked pretty like pared down. It was very limited and it got pretty obvious. Um, Not a great game, and especially early on against the Texans. And granted, it's still the Texans we're talking about. It's not like Seattle was good either, but against the Texans, there's flashes there. There are some nice plays, some down the field reads that he was making. It was certainly an improvement at the very least. He didn't regress in a full start that he had to do when the game needed.
Not saying that at all.
Yeah, no, I know you're
agree.
not. I know you're not.
100% agree.
But that's at least a positive that you could say with Trey Lance. For a guy that came through a smaller system, year off, all those things kind of coming in to being drafted by the Niners. And yeah, he was fortunate to only really be thrust in those two positions. But yeah, in a game against a team that the Texans did look better later in the season, so it wasn't quite the same kind of garbage team we had seen for the early part. In a game they really needed to win, Lance did look good for some pretty good throws in that game. Consistency, yeah, maybe not so much, but that's kind of the initial feeling. Is I think they'll stick with Trey Lance.
I don't think they're getting rid of Trey Lance, but I also think there's a good chance they look at that and go, not quite yet. You with developmental quarterbacks, there's a really careful curb you have to look at, right? Where am I throwing them to the wolves yet, or are they ready?
Yeah.
I think when you struggle with teams like the Texans, there's probably still a little bit more development that needs to be done to take this 49ers team where they want him to take them, right?
Sure.
Do you feel like you're rushing that development at that point by going, okay, you did show signs of progression, let's just give you the job, right? I worry that might stunt that development, right? Developmental quarterbacks are very tricky to time, right? Because you got to have the right timing on it. They can either be Aaron Rodgers or they can be Tim Couch, right? And you got to be careful about which one you are. I think Trey Lance is getting closer. I still think I had the right ETA on him when they drafted him of 3 years, right? So this is year one. Give him 2 more years to really learn the NFL game, and he's good to go. The Aaron Rodgers plan. Aaron Rodgers was also a 3-year plan before he was the starter.
Yeah. Definitely.
If this is truly your guy, and I do think he is, he's shown me enough to believe that San Francisco had picked the right guy. Be patient with him.
Yeah, I'm just wondering as far as like the other moves, because it's kind of going to come down. Do you go with a quarterback to bring someone in to take it off Trey Lance in that way, or are you putting that money into other guys in those positions that you would lose them otherwise because they were on 1 years and that sort of thing? Some of those defensive line picks, those guys, your Arden Keys and that sort of thing, who really kind of balled out. Offensive line pieces as well, guys like your Brunskills. I think Laken Tomlinson. I believe we actually have him for another year.
No, Laken Tomlinson's a UFA.
Yeah, so. And Lakeland Tomlinson was actually a pretty decent piece as far as a guard for the team. So it remains to be seen. It will be a kind of an interesting offseason. And yeah, one in which who knows, what kind of draft capital they'll have and where they'll be able to actually draft players in this upcoming one here. That's going to be ever changing. And yeah, they might be right there in the first anyways.
The guys I'm looking at are more guys like Quan Williams, even Jaqueski Tart, who I defended earlier, uh, Marcel Harris, guys like that, who I think if you look at them and go, with the right scouting, the right draft capital, can we replace these guys with younger guys in the draft? Yeah, probably. Right, like I like Quan Williams as a cornerback, but he'll be 31 next year. Right? And as you get against younger athletic wide receivers, will he be able to keep up that pace? Right. Somebody's going to pay Quan Williams a decent chunk of money. I don't think you want it to be you. Right. Jaqueski Tart, same thing. He'll be 30 next year. Uh, I think there's options there where you can replace for cheaper.
No.
Right.
Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah. I like guys like Tart. I think.
I like Jaqueski Tart.
Yeah.
Do I think he's irreplaceable by a younger player? I don't.
Yeah, I don't know if guys like Tufanga are going to be able to step up immediately either in that regard. I think he's a good safety. Um,
Yeah.
does he do what Dart can do for you? I don't think so.
No,
Yeah,
but does Jaqueski Tart move the needle the way Jimmy Ward does? I don't think so.
no, but it's I guess for me it's more good plays than bad, and then
Yeah,
the public perception with that pick, it's going to I think it's going to unfairly have some people
100%.
really knocking him
Yeah. And
potentially
don't get me
going
wrong,
back.
I love Jaqueski Tart,
Yeah,
but I think he's going to get an upgrade on the contract he has now in free agency. And I don't know at what point that upgrade becomes, are we just paying for comfort? Right? Like, we know how good Jaqueski Tart is.
yeah,
So we're going to pay a market value that's probably unreasonable for Jaqueski Tart because it's comfortable. We know what he does. Right? I especially if you look at that second rounder, there's probably a couple second round safeties that can replace Jaqueski Tart. Right? Not saying they can do it easily or smoothly, but this is the game of football. Right? At some point, these are the moves you have to look at. Um, so yeah, I do think San Francisco can end up in the situation where they can go big quarterback hunting if they want. I I think a lot of that's going to depend on how they feel about uh um Trey Lance's offseason, right? How comfortable they feel about the things Trey Lance has done in the offseason. So it'll be interesting to see. Um because he did show flashes of it for me this year, but as a full 17 game starter, I'm not sure yet.
yeah, yeah. We'll see what they decide to do coming up. It's still a lot of things to be decided, and yeah, exactly where I think the first move is probably the trade of Jimmy, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Um,
That's just it.
let's just hit on quickly. I don't want to we can't hit on this too much because they just started up, but we did have the kickoff. Oh,
Before we do
something
that,
else.
we
Okay.
missed something in the beginning, which is Tom Brady retired.
Oh yeah.
We kind of didn't mention that.
I mean, yeah.
Uh, Tom
We
Brady's no
kind
longer
of
a
yeah.
football player.
I mean, it was kind of spoiled a little bit, I guess, and it has been a little bit. So I guess yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom Brady retired.
Yeah, and then he said, "No, no, no, I'm not retiring." And then he's like, "No, I'm totally retiring, guys."
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a
Best,
shame. Didn't do it his way, but yeah.
best of all time.
Oh yeah. At least
Yeah.
for if you want to talk like if you want to try to separate an era, is absolutely for his era, and then I mean it's hard to argue against all time, sort of thing.
Yeah,
So
he holds almost every record you could want to hold. He's got 7 goddamn Super Bowls. Like, I'm not one of those people who think Super Bowls are the be all end all of choosing who the greatest of all time is, because then you got guys like Terry Bradshaw would be like number two. But that's just distinctly not true.
Yeah.
Um, but they certainly tell a bit of the tale, right? And besides that, like I said, every record you could ever want to hold, like they showed a stat of like Tom Brady from age 40 to 44, and it's like a Hall of Fame career on its own, right? He is the best ever. I don't love saying it because I don't like Tom Brady personally, and obviously we've all had to live through the era where Tom Brady was this guy, but he is, and Godspeed, Tom. May I never have to see you again.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, who knows what remains, as far as going to ownership. I know that's like something that's been floated around out there. I don't think coaching will ever be a part, but yeah, perhaps getting into the game in some way like that. Obviously, he'll still have business ventures and stuff, so he's retiring from football, but he's not really retiring from his brand and business, and he'll still be making plenty of money with all his stuff, I'm sure. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting, and not having him there. Tampa Bay is probably going to be stripped bare, and who knows what that team's going to look like in the future for sure. Um, can't imagine you can't really like drop another quarterback in there. You're gonna have like a Gronk leaving too and stuff like that, and who knows? Obviously you're, uh, you know, no a no Antonio Brown. Your cap situation isn't that great because you had to put this team together from some pretty expensive contracts. So yeah, not so great for Tampa Bay there, but they had a good run at it, and yeah, Brady, you know, enough to be said about him as far as yeah, hell of a run, hell of a run.
Yeah, I just thought I'd bring it up there real quick because I feel like at the very least we should just say enjoy retirement, Tom. Please don't
Yeah,
come back.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then yeah, I just really quickly, last thing I want to hit upon myself was just the fact that this morning had the opening ceremony for the Winter Olympics. Um, Going to be Winter Olympics. It's kind of one of those ones that it really sneaks up a little bit more than summer, right? I don't know how well they've really even been advertising this damn thing because it doesn't feel like they've been advertising it very well.
been a big thing in Canada, but
Yeah, it's really not getting so much play around in the U.S., especially like because I'm watching like sports streams and networks and that sort of thing, and
yeah.
even on those. But it looks like Peacock, USA, those are the guys down here, NBC, that are covering this. Um, I just kind of took a list of some of the interesting like the sports I usually like to look for, I guess, in these, and then the fact that in women's hockey, Canada and U.S. do have a preliminary match February 7th coming up, so
Yeah,
just a few days away.
both teams off to a good start. Canada winning 12-1 in their opening game.
Jeez.
I think the US beat Finland 7-0 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
and you're talking pretty much the two powerhouses, I guess, like five of
the,
the last six golds.
yeah,
One of these two.
five of the last six golds and five of the last six silvers.
Right.
No, all of the golds, five of the last six silvers. Because
Oh
there was
wow.
the one
Okay.
year where USA got eliminated by Finland in a shootout, I think. Or maybe it was Sweden in a shootout. That's the only time that USA and Canada haven't gone gold silver at the Olympics. Uh, they're gonna do it again. Uh, Interestingly, uh, it was a 5-2 win over Finland for the USA. Not without its issues. Brianne Decker, uh, maybe their best player, definitely in their top two or three. Looks like she is done for the Olympics after
Yeah.
suffering a knee injury.
Yeah, I seeing that.
That's a hard loss for the US. Now,
Right.
obviously, it's not going to affect them so much in games against China and Japan and even teams like Finland and Sweden and Russia. But against Canada, in those games that are defined by the smallest of margins, not having Brianna Decker is going to hurt a little bit for them. Um, but yeah, no, it'll be fun to see. Obviously, the Canada USA game is going to be a blast, like it always is. It's going to be primetime viewing.
And then like I just kind of was like kind of going through and just thinking about some sports. Because I mean, obviously, yeah, kind of interested in US, but I'm just kind of interested in potentially watching these in general. And I know they already had it for the prelims, but we'll see if I can catch it anywhere kind of along the way. Looking forward to curling, any curling.
Oh, dude,
Fun.
have you seen any mixed doubles curling before?
I no, but that was what they just
That's
had,
what's
right?
been
Yeah.
going on right now.
Oh, okay.
We're about halfway through the preliminary stage. Mixed doubles curling, for people who haven't seen it, is the best form of curling. I know there's a lot of people out there who don't love curling. I'm a big fan of sports that are chess matches, right? Like, I love sports like that. Yeah, I love football and hockey that are fast paced, head on head barn burners, but I also love sports like curling where it's like, okay, if you miss this shot by a quarter of an inch, you're about to give up 4 points the other way, so you better not. But mixed doubles curling. So instead of the four-player team format, you usually have the person throwing the rock, two sweepers, somebody in the house guiding you. Mixed doubles, you got two players, one man, one woman. So you get a lot less accuracy in your shooting percentage. Shooting about 80% in a mixed doubles game, you're shooting really well. Um, a lot more big ends, a lot more 3, 4 scoring ends. It's a really fun format to watch. It's going on right now. Uh, as we speak, uh, it is going on. Canada plays the USA in about 3 hours from what I'm talking right now. Mixed doubles curling, honestly, a blast. It's going on right now. I'd highly recommend it, even to people who don't really watch curling, because it is wild. Things
Yeah.
shift in a heartbeat.
Yeah. A lot of fun, and just like it's kind of one of those games. Yeah, exactly. A little bit of a chess match, um, and something that on the surface, on paper, you wonder how this is watchable, but yeah, trust. You just kind of get sucked into it, and especially in the when you're talking about the Olympic level of it, these guys they are going to be hitting some pretty crazy tight shots. It's very fun to see.
And the second you miss one shot, the game just turns, right?
Yeah,
Like, even if it seems like the most innocuous miss, oh no, I rolled my guard too much. It's in the rings now. You're in trouble, right? At this level of curling, and it's I love sports like that where it's like that one little mistake, that mental slip, and things start going downhill quick if you're not careful. And I don't know. I'm a big fan of sports like that. That's why I like baseball and stuff like that, right? Same reason.
uh, another event, and I guess this is actually a few events, but they all feel like they're pretty well aligned because they all kind of operate in similar ways. The bobsled, the luge, and the skeleton. I love that shit just because of how
Yeah.
fucking crazy it is, how fast they're going. It's very subtle as far as the movements. Obviously, the area in which they're working, and this isn't a big ass track. This is a very, very small track in which you have to have very kind of precise movements. Shit like the skeleton scares the crap out of me because
Skeleton in particular, you
how the
have to be a
hell are you
little
gonna go
bit
head
stupid to
down
do.
like head first into
Like
this
head
shit?
first down that thing
Absolutely insane.
on if you guys have never seen Skeleton, you are on a wooden sled, like the one you would take out to your backyard hill and go down. You're on that, but on a course made entirely of ice, going head first.
Yeah, it is absolutely insane. So I'll be looking out for that. That'll be something I'll try to catch when I can throughout the couple weeks we have here. And then the last one, just like the speed element, I love that. And obviously you got a lot of speed stuff. You got snowboarders, skiers as well. But the good old speed skating. Gotta love
Short
the
track
speed skating.
speed skating
Gotta
is
love
like
the
the
speed skating. Yeah.
best sport ever.
Yeah.
That's the sport every year when the Olympics comes around that I'm most looking forward to. I love long track speed skating too, but short track speed
They're
skating,
flying.
it's like NASCAR on ice.
Yeah. It's
right?
absolutely cracked. Yeah.
Got a small oval, and usually four people. You can get races that are as many as eight, nine people going around in circles on this oval, and they're shoulder to shoulder. They're bumping each other as they get around the corner. It is NASCAR on skates.
Yeah.
Short track speed skating is awesome.
Yeah. So those are kind of the ones I'll be looking out. Anything in particular you might be looking out for during the couple weeks here?
So you named a few of the ones that are on my list. The one I want to give special shout out to is snowboard and ski cross. If you guys haven't seen snowboard and ski cross before, what it is you got a think about like a motocross course on snowboards and skis, and you're going off jumps, you're going around corners tight, shoulder to shoulder, and it's a race to the finish. And snowboard and ski cross, a lot of fun. I'm a big Olympics person though. I love the moguls. I love aerials. All those weird sports that you just don't get to see that often. That's why I love the Olympics, right? Like the Summer Olympics. Yeah, sure. I enjoy the sports I usually watch, but I also love watching freaking the decathlon. I'm never gonna watch it again until the next Olympics come around.
Right.
But during the Olympics, I'm a big decathlon fan. Same thing with the Winter Olympics, right? I'm gonna be watching the speed skating like I've been watching it every day for that, and I know all these people. I do some research. I look them up online to see who are the favorites and stuff like that. But outside of that, man, it's just good fun.
Yeah.
If you're a sports fan, the Olympics are a great time to watch some things you just don't normally get to watch.
Gotta agree. I mean, yeah, and exactly. I think it's, you know, I'll always be tied up in my team sports. There's certain seasons you could count on, and
Yeah.
although, I mean, I guess we haven't really hit upon it, but MLB, I hope they get their shit right here. They're, you know.
I haven't wanted to talk about it for fear of
We might hold
jinxing
off.
things,
We might hold off for a couple weeks. We'll see after the Super Bowl how things are working out.
but it sounds bad.
We'll
Just put
see.
it that way.
We'll
It
see.
sounds bad.
But for the most part, it's like football. All right, into hockey, into basketball. Get your feel in there, and then every now and then we get things. We get the Olympics. We get the World Cup. Things that kind of enter our lives every other year, every 4 years, whatever. And it is a nice little opportunity. This is a time where this is the only time these guys are really going to shine in terms of a global stage. So should be some fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'll definitely be popping on streams on my side monitor as much as I can through the weekend and through the weeks as we go into the next couple weeks here of the Winter Olympics. Is there anything else you want to touch upon?
Olympics was pretty much all I had. That's it for me.
All right. Well, I think we'll be signing off then. Really fun episode. Looking forward. Yeah, Pro Bowl coming up as well. I'm going to be watching that. And leading up, we'll be talking next week. Be sure to check out that episode as we'll be taking our deep dive into the big one, the game. We'll be taking a look into the Super Bowl. We'll probably be picking apart both teams, really taking a look at who's going to have what kind of advantages, what kind of what can we look forward to as far as, Joey Burrow and the Bengals, Matty Stafford and the Rams.
That Super Bowl everybody had coming into the season.
And yeah, exactly. Who do you even decide to root for when both have some pretty good stories to them. So that'll be some fun. But yeah, this has been episode 15. Thank you for joining us on Sports Clichés. I'm Jay. He's Craig. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever you decide to watch us. Be sure to check us out live on Fridays, 3 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/taptoj, or make sure to look us up on YouTube for the Sports Clichés podcast to check out our VODs after the fact. Thank you all for stopping by and hope you have a great weekend.
Deuces.